I think we're live. Hello,
Hey,
everyone. I'm
Dan.
joined by my friend. So I've got CJ with me.
Yep, us two together again. So we had recorded another episode for the YouTube show that I have on my channel, Objection, and when I was editing it, I was busy doing other things, and then I ended up deleting the version that I wanted to keep, and then I had to go re-edit it, and I got too lazy to go re-edit it, and then I never posted it. So um, yeah, the last time we got together was
That,
like three
that's the
weeks
one with
ago.
me.
That was the one we did where we were talking about
Well, that news is out
Kanye
of date
and
now, isn't it?
Kim. Yeah, I ended up deleting the
Oh my God, that was,
version. Yeah, it was the last one
oh
we did 3 weeks
no,
ago.
that was a good episode. That was
I
such a
know,
good
but
episode. That was
I
funny.
still have the original version, but then by that time I was just so exhausted from editing it that I never went back. I was just like, "Oh my God," and I never went back to edit it. But I still have the original one. So I can still post it, but it's kind of old stuff. It was the Kim K Paris robbery stuff, the Kanye stuff. But yeah, that was a really good episode.
Oh,
We had
good.
some
No, that's
we
great
had
then.
yeah, we had some of the music from Matthew Russell at the end. Remember the outro?
Yeah, yeah, I do actually.
The Diddy
Yeah,
Blues.
bless. Yeah. God, it's been so much going on, hasn't it? With all these, because we were in your when I go on your channel, we talk about all these other cases and Kanye West dentist. I still can't get my head around that. Like, if that becomes a thing, I am genuinely going to follow that trial, just because I like things that just sound unusual. Like, there's just something about them.
Yeah, that case is gonna be really interesting to follow because he's kind of saying that because of that is why he was acting the way he was acting. So it'll definitely be
Yeah.
interesting. And he just showed up today to Diddy's trial. So he showed up, I guess, to show support or whatever. But yeah, he showed up, and I guess he was in the overflow room with like just the commoners, and he stayed there for 20 minutes and then left. So that was interesting, kind of in the Diddy trial. That was like one of
Oh.
the big highlights for today. Yeah.
Are people reading into too much into that, or is not much been said about it?
Well, he's been the only we talked a little bit about it on my channel where remember we were saying like he was the only supporter for Diddy that had been coming out like vocally, he had the free puff post that he had done, and then he tried to get his daughter on a song um
Yeah.
with Diddy. Yeah, and so he'd already had been like a vocal supporter, so I guess it was just like a show of, support, but a lot of people were speculating that yesterday's testimony, they call her Jane. They had a witness that testified saying that there was another rapper involved in some of these like freak offs, and a lot of people were putting two and two together. She said it was in Vegas and all this stuff, and they said that it was Kanye West because he was in Vegas at the time. Basically, they kind of sleuthed the timeline, so there's kind of like sleuths in the Diddy trial too, trying to piece
Okay.
everything together. And yeah, so they narrowed it down to Kanye. So a lot of people were like, did it have anything to do with that or um, anything else? But then some people were just like, oh, he just did it for headlines. What's going to come out about him, or to. We talk a lot about SEO with the Baldoni case, and Ashley, she's really, really good with the SEO. But I'm wondering, like, did he show up to change the headline? Like, Kanye shows up to the Diddy trial to kind of like take away from the headline of could it be Kanye that was, doing these freak offs with his wife?
Yeah, because Kanye is kind of like he is a bit known for he can generate headlines suddenly, controversial ones as well. So, that's interesting. It could be absolutely nothing though. It could be like you just say support, but
Yeah, there was
it's
an
interesting.
interview. There was an interview with Lauren Conlon. She's a podcaster reporter that I follow for the Diddy case. She does like the little updates outside the courtroom and stuff. And she interviewed one of someone who's like on Diddy's entourage, and he just said that it was just genuinely just to show support for the kids and stuff.
Yeah, and that's fair enough. So we have Justin Baldoni, Wayfarer, we have Blake Lively, we've got Brett and Aiko stuff to talk about today.
Yeah, there's a
Gonna
lot.
be
And
short.
right before we came on, the Taylor Swift re-entered the chat too. So it's like it's
I
always
know, but it
something.
didn't just enter the chat, it kind of bombed in, didn't it? Like, so we're all now sitting here going, did Friedman get something or not? Did James Fatuska play them off again? What is going on here? But I watched back with Lara and with Roman and with Ludwig. We have a bit of a group chat going, and we played back that little clip where Megyn Kelly asked Brian Friedman about specifically what can you tell me about what you've got from Taylor Swift. And we all come away thinking he's got something. It I feel like the email from Venable is quite carefully worded, like there were no documents exchanged, but that kind of doesn't close off that nothing wasn't exchanged one way or another. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like it could be something I would put money on, maybe because Friedman was talking about people who were side by side could potentially be witnesses. And I feel like, well, is Taylor Swift's dad gonna come into this? Has he agreed to be deposed? Has he sent the messages through his phone? So I don't know. I think they've
yeah,
got around it some.
yeah. Because I think I even replied to when you posted the exhibit that I was like, if it's not a document, because I'm thinking document is something written or a piece of paper, right? I was like, is it more
Normally
like
it is, yeah.
like a verbal statement, not anything in
Yeah, that's
writing?
what I mean,
Like
like a
did
deposition.
because okay, so he says I pulled it up. He says the exact wording in the email. It says so it's from Venable to
Yeah,
Lively's lawyers, and the lawyer is J. Douglas Belsridge, I think his last name is. But anyway, so he goes,
Aldridge,
no
yeah.
documents, no documents are being produced, and no deposition is being scheduled. But I'm like, if it's willing testimony, like like somebody saying, okay, we're here, like what if he just showed him the email, like here's the email and we're willing to testify about it in court, so no depositions needed, because I don't know, does everybody who testifies has to be deposed? I don't know how that works, or I
Um,
don't know.
I'm not entirely sure in America because we don't do depositions here. Um, I know when Johnny Depp's trial went on and you had oh the guy from TMZ, and the guy from the trailer park as well. Those two people, they come forward as willing kind of volunteers to give evidence and at the trial. They weren't deposed, but they were subpoenaed for the whole process. So I think because they only made their presence known when the trial was already underway, and they were kind of responding to something they'd heard in the trial. They were rebuttal witnesses. So, but they still issued a subpoena. They didn't go through the deposition. I'm not sure how I'd have to look into it. It's not something that would roll off my tongue. We just don't have them over here at all. We just send out witness summons to people who then turn up. We skip the whole deposition thing, except for very, very limited, rare circumstances. Um, I mean, it could be a voice recording. Maybe that phone call from Gottlieb was recorded, and they supplied the recording.
So
But
I
also,
just
when he says no depositions, he's referring specifically, I think, to the subpoena. He's been subpoenaed, that lawyer, and Taylor Swift. I think he's referring to them two specifically. That
mhm.
doesn't mean, because he can't promise that no one else is going to be subpoenaed by Wayfarer. He hasn't got that kind of, it's not within his gift to kind of say, oh no, no one else is going to be subpoenaed over this. because Wayfair are allowed to kind of call their witnesses as they see fit.
Okay, so I just Googled it and it says you do not have to depose someone who will be a witness in court necessarily. So that was
So
my
that could
like
be it.
initial like gut. Like when I read it initially, I was like, what if they just and even Taylor, what if they just verbally said like we're willing to cooperate with you and we'll testify, no deposition needed. Here's the like not giving them the documents per se, but maybe even like just showing them like on a computer screen. I don't know, that's just like the visual I got of when I
No,
read it
it
was
could be
like,
anything, you know. This is why we're kind of having this chat, though. It could actually be anything. It could be that they showed their screen or their phone with the text messages, or the email that Doug Baldridge sent to Michael Gottlieb, and
mm-hmm.
maybe Brian Friedman was sitting there with his phone camera going click. I'm cautious with the word. I just think that if Friedman hasn't got anything, then James Battista has lied again. But if Friedman has said he's
It's
got
just
something, and he kept saying it, more than what we've got. He kept saying, like, specifically more than what we've already got. So he's got something.
and for
Um,
me, more is like, like what is more than documents? It's the person themselves saying, like, this is what happened. To me, that's what
yeah,
and more meant was like Taylor Swift's full cooperation. And obviously, this is all just speculation. We're not lawyers, just disclaimer there. But yeah, someone in the chat said was quoting it, withdrawn by cancel for the Wayfair parties without prejudice to them
yeah,
timely serving subpoenas in the future should they decide to do so. So it's almost like
yeah.
as if they know that it could be coming because okay, so the opposite of what we're saying that something was got is that nothing was got and that Lively's statement is correct that this is just PR or whatever, that would Friedman really lie? But it's like, I don't know. Well, I don't know. I don't feel like what's more plausible to me is like
Seventh, yeah.
the latter doesn't seem as plausible as what we were just talking about. It seems more likely that Taylor Swift's dad cooperated, that maybe Taylor Swift is cooperating because Blake can't even go ask Taylor like, did you give him anything, because they're not friends, right? I think
Well,
that's what
no,
I got most out of it, like it proved that they're not friends because why would she be trying to ask Friedman, what did you
yeah,
get, what did you get? Wouldn't
but,
she just go and ask Taylor, what'd you give him?
this is it though. There's been news articles, and there that she's been bombarding her with text messages and kept trying to call her, and they've all been gone unanswered. So it does sound like she's frantic about this. She is worried. And now she's done this whole thing where she's gone to the judge and said, "Can you please issue an order?" Basically, what we saw the other day with oh, who is it? The Edgeworth, with Stephanie Jones. So she asked for a protective order. When basically that's going to the judge and saying, "Look, can you please stop this wayfarer from asking this third party for information?" And it was granted. I think Friedman's got a stronger case to say, look, we can tie Taylor Swift to this because there was various statements of her involvement, that were dotted around the marketing process. And just Blake Lively said she was all over she was all over the film. Her song was used. It was leveraged as well. So I
Well,
think
she's
Wayfarer. I'm confident that Wayfarer could defeat the protective order um, on that alone. But even if they don't, what they've done is the third party subpoena against Venable.
Mhm.
Um, there was a pending motion to quash. It was withdrawn because the subpoena was withdrawn, but the subpoena was withdrawn on a without prejudice basis, which means that Wayfarer can bring it back. And it's in DC then, which Lyman has already kind of set the bar for, I'm not dealing with this on my docket.
Yeah, and one of the things that also stood out to me in the document that she just filed the letter. I know Missy's saying what's going on. We're talking about Blake Lively just submitted a letter to the judge saying that she wants a protective order for Taylor Swift's and hers texts. And so one of the things that she included in there was the fact that she shouldn't have to give up the text because the motion was dismissed as far as the claims for defamation. And to
Yeah.
me, it's like, and then she says Brian was dismissed completely. And from what I saw in the interview with Friedman, Friedman says it's three of the amended complaints that are about to be amended include Ryan. Only the fourth one
Yeah,
is
but
just Blake Lively. So,
no, I had a problem with that as well. I raised a question over that at the time because um I am just finding it now, but I have a screenshot of a footnote about that. Where is it? Oh, I've got screenshots of so many things
Annie,
now.
the James that you're talking about, the guy on Zach, that's Josh, not James, but not
No,
the
no, no.
same
She's
reporter.
thinking of James. Yeah, yeah. I think you're thinking of the other guy
Yeah,
from the
that's
Daily
Josh
Mail.
Broswell. He's cool. I like his reporting. He did
Yeah,
the
he's
deep dive on Blake's
Burns down and
brother.
all that. No, this
Um,
is James Batisca, who Leslie Sloan had a motion to compel against, but then she was dismissed. This is a guy who was sending. He's the one that said that something. He's the one that made that said that Leslie Sloan accused Baldoni of sexual assault. That's right,
mhm.
isn't it? Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's the one who kind of, it seemed like from the text message was kind of like on both sides. There's a text message with him saying to Leslie, "Nobody knows we talk. They think we're just emailing about stories." And
yeah,
then he ends up cooperating seemingly after the Blake Lively filed the CRD and the New York Times article came out with Baldoni's people. He gets introduced to Brian Friedman in the text, and then he's like, "Let me just show you everything me and Leslie talked about." So I don't know about him because I'm like, was he stirring the pot? Was he like, did he legitly just want to help
yeah.
out Baldoni? Was he always
I
Team
had a
Sloan? Was he trying to mess him up?
yeah.
I
I
don't know
think
about him.
I got
I
the
have him on my
impression that you know I think all through my threads actually, whenever he come up, I was like, yeah, this guy is, he says one thing to one party and then he's saying something else to the other party, and then he's playing them off against each other. And so he has co-authored the Daily Mail article, which said that Brian Friedman got what he needed, and that's why he withdrew the subpoena. So, first question is, because I remember reading that, and it didn't say Brian Friedman said it; it said a source said it. Like, so I'm pretty sure it said this, or an insider. It was something like that. It was worded like that. And as soon as I saw in Lively's letter that he had co-authored it, immediately I was like, oh, here we go.
because you have
um,
to ask yourself, is he the source for Sloan and just plan like I don't know. This is just me spitballing
exactly.
allegedly, like this is just me spitballing, but
No, no, no.
could
I'm
it
I'm
be
I'm spitballing with you here, to be honest.
yeah, like could it be that
They're
Sloan
good
told him that
questions.
that's what happened and that's his inside source? Like, or something, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like is he just doing the story to make Baldoni's side look bad? Because we know that he is cooperating with Sloan, right? Because in um the last thing that we heard before the dismissal, the motion to dismiss, it was that he was going to cooperate and give all the text messages between him and Friedman, and so there, like, he didn't need the motion to compel him or whatever. So we do know that at the very
yeah.
end there, he was going to cooperate with Sloan and the Lively Party. So I don't know about him. I don't know what about that article either. But I know that Friedman
Um,
himself on Megyn Kelly was a little cryptic about, you know, what he was saying,
he
but
was very cryptic.
he did say that
He was very no.
they
He
would
was
come back
he was
to
a
it.
lot more cryptic. Yeah, no, I found him more cryptic. I'm just going to quickly cover Ryan Reynolds, and I thought Ryan Reynolds was now fully dismissed.
Hmm.
And I questioned this, and no one ever actually come back to me. I tried to also ask. I asked the question actually on Ask Two Lawyers, and they had obviously not read the footnote, and Brian Friedman's statement did confuse me. But in the footnote on the motion to dismiss filing, it does actually say. there is a mistake, by the way. They have given leave to amend the breach of implied covenant and the prospective economic claims. So there is 4. Friedman's right, but the judge has put it in the same footnote actually that he wasn't given leave, but leave has actually been given. But as far as Ryan Reynolds go, there's this bit that says the failure of the defamation claim against Reynolds is also fatal to the claims for intentional and negligent interference with prospective economic relations. And the reason is because they require interference to be through a wrongful act. So because defamation, which is the wrongful act, is now it's gone, I'm reading that as that means that Wayfarer can't bring the other damages against Ryan Reynolds. Friedman seemed to think differently. We'll see what the amended comes back with. I don't know what's going on, and I don't know whether he's in or not. It sounds because Judge Lyman said a few things, and then somewhere else he'd say something completely contradicting, and that happened on a few occasions. But I think he made a mistake. He said in the footnote that some claims were out and there would be no leave to amend, but the order
Itself.
it did confirm that they were actually leave was given to amend them. Whether it was that leave wasn't given to amend in terms of Ryan Reynolds, because there's no wrongful act now to tie to it. So I wanted to cover that because I think there's been some confusion. That's my take on it. You might hear I'm not a US lawyer, so I always say if a US lawyer says something different, they're probably in a better position to know than me. But reading what it says and interpreting it my way, that's what I feel is. Which fits with Lively's letter.
Yeah, I'm not a lawyer at all, but I just I go by, I guess, Brian Friedman from his own mouth, but it could be interpreted differently because in the Megyn Kelly thing, he said the judge has given us a roadmap exactly how to put forth these claims. And so it's like, I know in the TMZ interview, he said the 4 claims, but he didn't really go as into much detail. But in the Megyn Kelly
No,
one, he went into like super detail.
a bit
Like
of
it's
detail.
this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, this is 4. And then at the very end of him stating them, he goes, the judge has given us a roadmap. So I don't know if the roadmap he's talking about is the order itself, or if maybe this is some kind of like ex parte thing or something where the judge, he tried to ask for clarification from the judge, and the judge
Yeah.
told him or
No, I
something.
think well,
But I know
what
Lively
he.
submitted a letter for clarification, so I don't know if that would be
Oh
in the
no,
docket
that's
or what.
no. So that's different. So that I can clear up. So what Lively was submitting a clarification, a request for clarification on her emotional distress. So she obviously withdrew these 2 big, there was severe emotional distress claims.
Hmm.
They are a whole different ballpark. What she is now claiming is she's going to say, well, because I'm alleging sexual harassment, so I suffered anxiety, I suffered, a loss of appetite, but they are so mild, they are barely worth talking about. And that's why the evidence is not needed, the medical evidence and everything. That's why discovery is not really needed. But the Wayfarer will be allowed to do some discovery. If she's got witnesses, Wayfarer will be able to probe that and get into all of that too. But she's not going to need all the medical information because it's no more than you would expect for someone who is saying, look, I've been sexually harassed. So if someone has suffered something like that, then you do expect there to be some kind of, like they might have had a bit of short-term anxiety, or they might have become a bit withdrawn, or just struggled to concentrate a little bit more. Like really, I'm not being dismissive here, but in terms of compared to the claims that she has just withdrawn, they are next to nothing.
And that's what
All they're certainly not big monetary damages. because the big monetary damages were in the severe emotional distress claim. So when she withdrew them, that was definitely a win for Baldoni, 100%. But what
Mm-hmm.
she was saying is, because the judge said, well, you'll be precluded from giving evidence, the law actually says that, she can give evidence without having full discovery on her medical records and everything for what is called garden variety garden variety emotional distress claims. And obviously she went back and said, look, you said I would be precluded from giving evidence. Did you mean from everything, including these garden variety claims? And the judge simply come back and said, no, I didn't mean them. I meant, these two claims. If you're
Mm-hmm.
withdrawing them, that's that. So she is now going to actually withdraw them with prejudice. So they won't be coming back in
Which you
exchange for
bringing up
just
that you
that.
bringing up that reminds me of why she would say that Taylor Swift's texts aren't necessary, because wouldn't that be evidence? Like, wouldn't they need, like if she's claiming emotional garden variety
Yeah.
anxiety, wouldn't you text your friend or something? Like, wouldn't it apply there?
Yeah, it could be, as simple as that. It could be like,
If
oh,
she's
I
saying you
don't
can't get
feel
the
like
text
going out.
because everything's dismissed on your defamation claim, but wouldn't it apply towards her? Because you're allowed to defend yourself through discovery too, so wouldn't those
Yeah,
be
yeah.
relevant?
Well, just because the defamation claim's gone does not mean that, discovery won't be still obtained. They could still there will still be discovery. They will have, if Wayfair have had anything from Leslie Sloan, for instance, they can still use that for this. Ryan Reynolds says, oh, there was going to be a spousal privilege. It would be interesting for me if Ryan Reynolds, if they brought him in to give evidence as to Blake Lively and how her demeanor changed and all of that in
Mm.
response to these allegations. Because if he gets on the stand to testify about that, then he waives the spousal privilege. So Wayfarer can,
Hmm.
unless it's limited in some way to just that, Wayfarer potentially is an open door for them. So, but I've no doubt they're wheeling her mum, they're wheeling, her sister, and all kinds of people. I'm sure they would have gone for Taylor Swift, but we're not quite sure where that kind of sits anymore.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I was like, oh, that makes like if she's still going for garden variety emotional damages, I feel like Taylor Swift would be relevant to that because that was her best friend who was there. And didn't he say when he was being cryptic, like anyone who was there with her shoulder to shoulder through the very
Yeah.
beginning would be relevant? So,
Exactly. And Brian Friedman, I'll tell you, this is how easy this is going to be, and this is why I'm not worried about this, right? I know when the judge clarified that she could actually she could testify effectively and bring some witnesses about garden variety. Everyone immediately piled onto my ex and was like, oh, she's got her own way again. No, that's not quite what happened. Because what happened is the judge, should have worded the order better to clarify that he was, that she'll be precluded from giving evidence about these two claims specifically. Because the law, he's not given her anything. The law is that she doesn't need discovery at that level anyway. But Friedman's going to walk in and straight away, if I'm Brian Friedman, I'd be saying, so you said in your first amended complaint, because all this is still there, you couldn't get out of bed. Sometimes, most of the time, you didn't even leave the house. Do you want to tell me how it felt then when you went to Capri to film? How you felt going to all the Taylor Swift concerts, all the red carpet events you've been to?
mhm.
And he will have, like me and you, we sleuth timelines on what was she doing when she was supposedly like so distressed she couldn't leave the house? And we come up with a great big long list. And Friedman's going to, he will have done the same kind of, investigation. He'll have that evidence. He may well, I mean, we don't know how much of our stuff is being watched. I have no doubt there are paralegals or legal assistants who are kind of watching what's coming up, and that's how a lot of information is, you know, if it's not being emailed directly to him, then that's how a lot of information is, you know, finding its way into various letters. Oh, well, you know, like the Forbes, the Forbes interview where she said she likes
Mhm.
to pretend to be an actress and then pull the rug, you know, and it suddenly makes its way into letters and filings. And I think Friedman will be aware of all these discoveries. And this is what he will rebut her and say, well, if how are you able to simultaneously not be able to get out of bed and leave the house, but also enjoy yourself at not one, not two, but you know, several Taylor Swift concerts?
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, for sure. And it makes Taylor even more relevant because again, that's another that goes to the emotional damages again. It's like
Yeah,
she was there any contact after the concert? I'm sure they met, and like what was her demeanor then? Like was she I don't know how it works, like what you can ask or like what discovery would be relevant. But to me, just as a layman, it seems like okay, that would be relevant because like he said, who's the persons that were around her the most during this time that would have the most information? I know Taylor was on tour and stuff, but you know, they met for
yeah,
that dinner. I think they had like two dinners and then there's like two or three concerts in between. I know right after when they had that break, okay, when she did the Vogue thing with Hugh Jackman, I think it was Vogue. You know that magazine spread? In there
yeah,
she says like, "Oh, I got to wake up early to go, to this concert or whatever." And that was May of 2024. So she
yeah,
was
that's true.
going to the concerts and stuff a lot after um the supposed SH, and then even after the um supposed smear campaign in October she went to another concert for I believe it was like Ryan Reynolds' birthday or something. But yeah, I feel like Taylor's definitely, very much in it, if not because Blake keeps bringing her name back in it again.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, that's true.
with this letter, it's just like I don't know how Discovery works. I wish that Ask Two Lawyers could do an episode on Discovery because I'm really curious as to how that works. Where what type of information, like okay, say that you have a deadline and you need to extend it, do like because it's a lot of paperwork, like because when I read the papers and they say something like um we're trying to gather all the third party stuff so we could just give it to you all at once, like they're going through it all or whatever. Like
Yeah.
are you allowed to give it like piecemeal, like okay, well here's one paper and then email that, or are you supposed to just like gather it all and like I don't know. I just feel like
Well,
I don't know enough about Discovery how that works because I know they're asking for all the third party stuff and it's overdue and all this stuff, but from what I know about court cases and other ones that I followed with Discovery, sometimes things just take a while to like obtain, especially when there's multiple people. So there are extensions and all this other stuff. And I believe that maybe even they got extensions for some stuff. Lively's team did.
not
And
much because they got that one day, didn't they? She asked for like a month, and he was like, "You get one day."
okay.
So,
Because have
I
they
mean,
already submitted all of their Discovery?
no, they
Like, have
haven't.
they met all their deadlines? I don't know. To me, it just seems
No,
like stuff's gonna
no,
happen, and if you're running
it
to the
norm.
judge every time,
Well, what normally happens is you normally, I mean, this is what happens in the UK. If we kind of, you know, we have a deadline, and it's like when you buy a house in the UK. I don't know if it might be the same in the US, but when you buy a house in the UK, you usually get everything together, and then you agree a date to exchange documents.
hmm
Um, so that's what normally happens is they keep, you know, from the letters I've seen, I think it's about something very similar because they keep arranging to, you know, give each other you know, exchange what their discovery with each other, you know, instead of going bit by bit and losing track of what you got, they usually try to collate it all and then say, right, on this date, we're going to exchange. And for whatever reason, you know, it might be that someone is not happy and is you know, lodging objections or wants, you know, is wanting the judge to do something because it's too broad, or they may be going back and forth and going, well, what do you mean, by the word access, or the word, file, or the word phone number? I mean, that that's usually buying time. It may be, but obviously they've got to hammer down exactly what do you mean, because they don't want to be given over everything and assuming it could cover anything. It's got to be, they'll be saying, no, you want something specific, you tell me, and define these words, which they use in everyday conversation, knowing full well what they mean. But in the legal sense, it's got to be, what do you mean? You tell me what you mean by that. And there's a reason for that, and it's to make sure that obviously you're not giving away things that you don't need to, or shouldn't be given away. There will obviously be arguments as well. Oh, this is privileged, you can't have it. And then we've seen back and forth saying, going to the judge, judge, they're saying this is privileged. We don't agree. Can you, come and referee here, because we're just arguing like a pair of toddlers. That happens. That's happened more in this case than I've ever seen in a case before. Is the petty infighting, and there will be a lot of things, and that's why things keep getting pushed back and pushed back. But where you see them coming to the judge and saying, "Judge, can we have an extension?" or "Judge, can we, we've agreed that, I want to extend my time to respond to this person. That person has said yes, it's okay, and in return, I'm going to respond. I'm going to extend their time to respond to my response." That the judge then needs to order that and needs to sign off on it. So that's when they come to the judge and go, by the way, we've come to this agreement that we're going to extend our time limit to respond to this and then respond back. But more often than not, they will be kind of sorting things out behind the scenes. When things have gone on too long, or they're getting too close, like, because for discovery there's an absolute cut off.
Which is
Um,
August.
yeah, which is coming up,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm pretty sure for the document production, it's like the 1st of July. And then for depositions, it's the 15th of August. So, like, that's why Lively's, moaning that, about the third party law firm, Wayfarer, saying, well, we'll get it to you before the 1st of July. But once the 1st of July is here, then that's the discovery window closed. And there's nothing that can be done to get it then if Wayfarer don't produce it, which is what Lively sounds like she's paranoid about.
Well,
um,
fair enough. If you can't,
Which is fair enough,
that's
yeah.
her lawyers are lawyering, like fair enough. If there's nothing that
Oh,
can be
yeah.
done after, they want to make sure that it's on record and stuff. But because I wondered, like, is this just like, Friedman and, Baldoni's team being like, I don't want to give it to you, like what she's saying, like if you're reading her letter as fact, or is this just something
Well,
that comes up when you're trying to get documents together? And that's why I wondered like how it worked. And thanks for the explanation, because I was like, if say, one of the employees from Tag doesn't have the documents requested or can't access it for some reason, or life is just life in,
yeah.
and then they need his stuff to turn everything in because they can't just piecemeal turn it in. um, are they just waiting for everybody to get their duckies in a row to just turn it all in? To me, that's what it
Yeah.
seems like. It seems like there's so many parties involved that they're just trying to get it all together and just give it to you all at once. But,
Well, there's a really good
she's making
reason
it
why
sound
they
like
do
it's
that.
nefarious. She's making it sound like it's nefarious,
No,
like they're purposely withholding
no,
information.
because they're withholding too. But there is actually a really good reason. If you've got something that I want and I've got something that you want, why are you going to give it to me before I've given mine to you? What's the
Yeah.
incentive? Because then,
Because then you can
because
tailor your responses to, like, I know there's also like interrogatories and things like that. If say, because I'm still just learning about all this stuff, but if say you get like a discovery text message and then they're like, oh well, they have that text message, so I have to answer this a certain way, or obviously you're supposed to answer it truthfully, but I can see where
yeah,
there'd be a case where getting discovery documents prior to maybe answering questions or taking your deposition so you know what they have, would be convenient.
yeah, and I mean, we were speculating yesterday. We think that's why Lively wants the third party law firm um pinned down and get their documents given to her as soon as possible then, because she's obviously got her deposition coming up. So she's going to want to know what they got, but they're not under an obligation to, unless the judge orders it, which is not abnormal. That's not giving Lively what she wants. That's just, that's a decision that all judges, a motion has been brought to the judge, so the judge has to respond to it. That's quite a normal thing though. But, like what you're saying though, what we see going on the docket, right? All the filings we've seen, and God knows I felt buried in them on some days. I have been, like, oh my God, I can't do this anymore. I worked 20 hours that day and I've had 4 hours of sleep. Because there are so many filings coming down, and they're pages and pages and pages, and there's so much to read through. And then on top of that, because I don't do lives normally, like, obviously we are now, but when I do my extra eds, that's typing and typing and typing. It takes hours for each document, and I get overwhelmed. And I can read the law. I can read it. I know I can get through the documents faster than a lot of people, who are not legally trained. But what we see going on in the docket, and we feel, I've heard people saying, oh my God, they're flooding the docket. They're really not, because until a few days ago, there were 16 parties. So this is just normal. It looks a lot because there's so many different parties involved, so many different law firms. I mean, it takes me like 3 minutes to scroll past the list of law firms to get to the actual docket when I'm looking on Pacer.
Yeah.
And one thing I was saying this yesterday on Ashley's stream as well. I was like, what you see is such a small amount of the work, because behind the scenes they are writing up all the filings, they are doing all the legal research into case law and everything. They are, responding to all these law firms and all the requests for interrogatories and document production. They are dealing with letters of various moans and groans, and that goes, in all directions. It's not just come from Lively. And, I don't blame them. Like, everyone keeps saying, well, Friedman should have amended his complaint. But the thing is, right, is they were so bogged down with all the deadlines, all the responses, all the, they just got through all the motions to dismiss all at once. And don't forget, you got a docket for Lively and all, there was all the other parties with her. And then you had a Stephanie Jones docket as well. So there was, and Wayfarer are on both of those. Lively's not on Jones's, and Jones isn't on Lively's. So, and Wayfarer, Friedman and Meister, they are representing Wayfarer. Well, they're representing so many parties and non-parties. And then you've got the other parties, apart from Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively, they all have each got their own law firms dealing with them. So I don't know. I felt like I could understand why Wayfarer's counsel kind of got, it was just so much coming down the pipe, and then you had the amicus briefs, and you had all this crap. You had, motions to quash from Marvel, from Edgeworth, from Venable, and they had to respond to all of this. But then in the background, you've also got all the meeting confers, all the emails, all the phone calls. It's never ending, honestly. So I think Wayfarer's Council have done an absolutely sterling job. I do. I've got no regrets about what they've done so far, because they have managed to pull. They've kept up with it all. They fought as well as could be. They've got some stuff stacked against them, but ultimately the big thing is everyone wrote off Justin Baldoni when the CRD came out. I don't
And
think it
he's
was
still
one
here.
person who, but yeah, and he's got
Yeah,
the
he's still
overwhelming
here.
public support. And
And
if you can't say that a good job has not been done, even if it's from the PR side.
yeah, I agree. And one of my favorite parts of the interviews, I know a lot of people are like, I don't want can you hear me? Sorry, I think my phone cut
Yeah, I
off.
can hear.
Okay. Um I don't think that sorry, I lost track because my phone just cut off for a second. Oh, about his interviews on TMZ and Megan Kelly and stuff. And I really liked on the TMZ interview how he had like all the paperwork. Like his desk was like stacked up with papers. Behind him
Yeah,
was like another table with like a bunch of papers. He had his little glasses on. He was like removing them and like putting them back on. And like for me, the optics, like I already know because of Ashley's, teaching everybody like optics and things like that, that a lot of the stuff that we see is like optics, but like it worked on me because when he went when I was watching the interview, I was just like looking at all the paperwork and stuff and I'm like, wow, like he's really working hard. Like it gave me that kind of sensation of he's working hard for Baldoni. It made me realize like look at all the stuff they probably have to go through, like whether or not they just stacked a bunch of papers there just for the optics or not, but it worked on me and it made me feel like I don't know, it made me feel good when I saw that they were working
good.
hard, and it made me like understand it a little bit better of like here's this lawyer he's probably like the head of, because I know there's what, like 8 lawyers working on the case plus paralegals and stuff, but it seems like he's the front facing guy and also um like the one that I don't know how it works. I always envision like a big old long table and like, 30 people all like working together, like, oh my God, they just
Yeah.
filed an amicus brief. Um,
There will be a bunch. I mean, a huge bunch between the two because you've got California law firm, which is Friedman's. You got a New York law firm because they're dealing with the different jurisdictions as well. But I am absolutely telling you now, there will be dozens of people from both law firms working on this and working probably
mhm.
flat out. But one thing I will say about Friedman, I've clocked him. I've seen this before. This is really familiar. I love what he does. There's two things that I've noticed with him is he plays a bit of psychological warfare with Blake Lively when he does his interviews, and she takes the bait every time. So, and I'll come back to that one in a minute, right? But the other bit I've noticed with him is, and I've seen this in practice myself, I've worked with men like this, is especially the kind of the older men, past middle age, kind of older men, what we call old school. Um, I have seen it time and time again where they act a bit like, it looks like they're making mistakes. Yeah. And they look like kind of tired, old, forgetful men who probably should be retiring now because they're fluffing up the case. And I'm not saying he's doing that, but he's doing things, right? And when I've seen it in practice, it lulls the opposition into a false sense of security. Oh well, we'll be fine here. Like, look at him, he doesn't know what he's doing. And then they're trapped because the lawyer kind of, it's almost like the sharpness comes back into focus, and it's like watching a Venus flytrap snap on a fly.
Mhm.
It They're trapped, they're going nowhere, and they're caught because they it makes them kind of, because of that false sense of security, then they kind of lower their guard. And so with Friedman, I noticed, right, when he went on Megyn Kelly back in December, he was talking about all these people he was going to sue. Um, so then she filed her complaint. She rushed off and filed her lawsuit, right? And then on TMZ, he was sat there and he was like, "Well, our concern is she's going to withdraw her claim. We
and,
want Justin
and then her
Bieber."
her lawyer
The
clapped
next,
back right away.
yeah, her lawyer didn't just clap back, right? Her lawyer went on TMZ and
Yeah,
then sat there and went, she is determined. So now there's no excuse. If she's so determined, there will be no excuse for her to withdraw the claims.
he forced her
And I
decision right
think
then and there to say either way,
exactly,
instead of having to wait around and be like, will she or will she not? And his optics too in that TMZ interview is like you see Friedman with all the paperwork and all that, and then when Gottlieb went on, it was like literally him and then just like a white wall behind him, which to me it felt like coldness. Like when I was watching it, I was like, it just didn't feel like homey or like comfort. I don't know. It's just like these feelings or emotions that you get when you're like watching things. And yeah,
exactly.
I thought that he came off like real cold and kind of like not believable because you could see he's reading from like a computer screen in the first half of the interview, like he had something written out, because you can see his eyes moving like back and forth through the screen. So I also thought that was like a
Oh,
little.
Megan Kelly's.
No, this is on TMZ. This is Gottlieb. Gottlieb is in the very beginning of the interview. You can see like
Oh yeah,
he's
yeah.
reading from a screen. So to me, it felt, you know, kind of
You
like
see,
manufactured, like not like he had rehearsed and it's
yeah,
scripted. And whereas when Friedman went on TMZ, it felt like he was just like, all right, this is what's going on, y'all. Like, I'm here knee deep in paperwork, trying to give you guys an update. This is how we're gonna move forward. We're not stressing out. And
yeah. No,
yeah, you
I think
could
so
definitely
too.
see like the differences between the two of them.
Yeah, because well, I mean, it's kind of, again, it's kind of lured her into, she's taken the bait. So she has now probably sent her attorney out, go out there, fix this, let everyone know I'm not going to be withdrawing. And now she's committed to it now. So, but I mean, if we're going to go through the second amended on the claims that are allowed to be amended. Um, we're then going to have the whole cycle of motion to dismiss again, just to warn everyone that is happening. They have a right to file motions to dismiss for each and every complaint. So we will see that. And if they stay in, um, she'll be going to trial anyway, because Friedman was very clear he has no intention of settling. And I know people were kind of disappointed with the motions to dismiss. And don't get me wrong, I am too, right? But there is a silver lining that I have seen, is that when you look at Wayfarer's complaints, both of them, they have two sides to a story. And one side for me is he did not commit sexual harassment. And the other side of it is she tried to steal the film. And between her claim, him defending himself against her claims, and him still having especially um, the implied covenant of good faith,
Yeah.
implied breach of covenant, sorry, of good faith dealing, then um, that is where he's able to bring his evidence that she tried to seize control of the film. So he is still getting to tell his story between the two, between the claims that collectively the pair of them have still got. And I
And
still think that's great.
yeah, and the
But getting rid
defamation
of
will come
it's
anyways
gone.
if the
Yeah.
well, it's gone on his side, right? So like the damage is, I guess, the money part is, but the defamation will probably be like, it's like an unspoken thing, because if he wins if he, basically battles the SH claims and prevails on that, then it's obviously unsaid that he was defamed, because, it
Yeah. I
didn't
mean,
come
he
to
won't get
fruition.
damages
So
on
to me,
that.
he won't get the money, but oh my God, Michael Gottlieb is committed to that hairdo.
I know. That made me laugh. It's great
Oh
commentary.
man. But
And
yeah, so
but
um
it takes that great weight that comes with the risk. Like she might bring the motion. She's clearly going to file and try to get the triple attorney's fees and everything now at this point. Fine. I'm expecting that. Everyone should be expecting that. She's consistent if she's nothing else. But even if the judge grants it, right? Because there's a possibility, even if he grants it, and I would hope he's not going to, because in his own words, he didn't consider Section 47.1. So, and I feel like, well, Section 47.1 is qualified by it, the claim, the grounds for complaint have to have no actual malice attached to it, which would normally be pleaded. But I'm digressing. So I'm hoping he doesn't give her the triple damages. But even if he does right now at this point, it's going to be so much less than it would be if we went carried on at this rate to the trial, which is not for another 9 months. And look at how much we've already had in this 6 months. So I feel like it's the lesser of two evils in many ways. Do you know what I mean? And then
yeah, and even when
he
people
still
were
gets to
saying
fight all of his arguments.
about the judge and stuff, which I do, I really loved Cassidy's deep dive into the judge and stuff, but one of
Yeah,
the
I
things that
did.
I couldn't reconcile, and that Rachel, I forget what her last name is, but the guest on Omar, the Tilted Lawyer, last night, she
Oh
brought
yeah,
up a
yeah,
good point about how he still gave them leave to amend those
yeah,
four, 2 or 4 or whatever. Um,
yeah.
and because he was obviously curious about that, because my whole thing was always when they're like, is he going to dismiss these claims? I'm like, y'all know that Judge Lehman is there for the tea. He's reading these things because if we're so hooked, I could just imagine him like, I need more tea, I need more details. But when he dismissed them, I was like, okay, I guess I was wrong. I guess he wasn't there for the tea. But
Yeah,
one thing I did think was like he must have found that portion of their argument compelling and wanted to know more. And that's why he's like, well, if you fix this, I'm willing to hear it again. And
yeah,
to me, that was, something that kind of got overlooked with the whole defamation thing. But with the defamation, I felt like, yes, it's monetary mostly because all that means is that he can't get damages from it. But proving especially the WME part and stuff, for me was
and that's
like
still in.
a big
That's
portion of the suit, which was
well,
basically like they were not only just claiming that he, was this quote unquote predator or whatever. It was because, like, say if somebody gets SH, like your wife got SH,
yeah,
are you gonna go to that person's employer to try and mess with his like bag, or are you gonna try and go get justice for your wife and go through all like the channels? Like, we need to go to SAG, we need to go to the union, we need to go to file a official HR report, we need to do all this stuff, or are
yeah,
you gonna go? Because remember, she has that text where she says it's mafia style with us. And so to me, her own words resonate with their own actions, which was instead of going to the proper channels, have an investigation done by CRD, do all this, it's like you're going to go run to intervene with someone's bag. Like, I don't know. That just seems more
yeah.
like vindictive,
No,
revengeful, not
well,
necessarily like justice seeking.
no, it's not. And I actually, I tried to kind of say to people, and I've actually been saying this all day. And Cassidy did not, I've spoken to Cassidy as well because I was like, surely you did not mean for people to kind of watch a video and then start running off on some vigilante crusade and she was like, absolutely not. And I think she said as well, I told people don't do anything. I saw all kinds of comments, and I understand. I really do get it, right. I'm not happy with some of the financial connections. I have been 100% about that. I agree with everything Cassidy found. I agree that the problem is right is whilst it sounds terrible, yeah, that's not enough in the legal world, right? Because like having connections, it's like when everyone heard about this new lawyer, and it wasn't even a new lawyer, but a lawyer that was added from Friedman's firm to the docket that used to work for Venable, and everyone was losing their mind, thinking, "Oh my God, it's an ally, coming to help." But no, she just used to work at a different law firm. This is nothing special, because she'd been with Friedman's firm for quite a while, actually. I think a few months before the lawsuit even came, and at
Hmm.
that time, Friedman had none of this intel from, allegedly from Taylor Swift's dad or anything. And there was no subpoena on the horizon for Venable. So, no, she wasn't brought in as an ally. Clearly, she was just added to the docket because they were getting massively, massively overwhelmed. We are going to be talking about Brett, just to clarify that. Don't
And,
worry.
and, and
Um,
yeah,
but I had people going, oh, we need to start petitions. We need to. Someone was telling people, oh, everyone, quick, go and call go to the FBI. The FBI aren't going to do anything about this. It's got nothing to do with them. This is a civil lawsuit.
well, for
There
me,
are,
it was two separate like things. Like one of them is
yeah,
like, is the judge biased? To me, it felt like I didn't feel like the judge was biased because he still gave him the leave to amend in a way. So I was
yeah.
like, if he was really biased, he would have just been like, or did he do? I mean, some people could argue, well, he gave him those 3 things, so it wasn't as obvious or something. I don't know, but to me it was like two different things. And then the second thing can be true, that there are some like connections that were found or unearthed, and then his previous past, a
Oh,
lot
yeah,
of
he's got a
those things,
past. Yeah,
even if because I haven't done my own deep dive, just I've seen Cassidy's video, I've seen Ashley's video, but Like, when is
Mm.
his next, disclosure? Because I know that's yearly or whatever. And even if, like,
Yeah,
say that he sold some of this stuff, we can for sure, from his history, know that he's used to investing in like media companies and like Hollywood adjacent stuff. Like, that's what he invests his stock in, is things like that. So
yeah,
for me, that was pretty clear that either way, it's kind of okay. Well, this is what kind of has been making you money or has made you money in the past, maybe making you money now. And so I felt compelled by that argument. But at the same
yeah.
time, there's got to be like, that's why I said it's up to Friedman and them to do like a even deeper dive
Yeah,
than what sleuths can do, to figure out if that's a thing. And I think it'd be a great time to segue into, because I'm looking at the chat, everyone's talking about Brett.
yeah. We
And
are going to come to that, but there's a couple of points I just kind of want to quickly go over there because I agree with
yeah,
you. This this is. I had some people saying, "Oh, this is bigger than Wayfarer than their lawsuit." No, this is Wayfarer's lawsuit. This is a civil lawsuit. This is not, anything that's been funded by the state.
well, a
And
lot of people have problems with
if you're,
SDNY. SDNY is a court right now where
yeah,
Diddy is in that court too, and there's a lot of things going on with SDNY that people have been clocking for a couple years now, not just
and
this case. So some people want to,
that's fine.
uncover the bigger picture with the federal judicial system, especially
Yeah,
SDNY. And that's a big beast. Like, you're talking about, we're already dealing with the big beast of Hollywood and, the mafia style
yeah,
stuff, like, and then taking on that. And that, I did tell Cassidy, like, it's incredible that you're, even trying to slew this, because it's it's two separate things to me. It's like we have the Wayfair case, and then we have the bigger issue of federal judges, like that Hill article that I had sent over to you, where it's not just this one judge; it's other judges. I
yeah.
think Popcorn Planet had a video on it. Was it Popcorn Planet? I don't remember where I watched it, but there was a video that about other judges who had also had
Yeah.
to recuse themselves because of like
And
ties and things in federal court judges.
that's fine. And I mean, they happen, I mean, we have the thing is, right, is the chances of actually getting I mean, one thing is people, the concern was not about the wider picture though. People watching, following this case, they were watching a video about this case and they wanted to remove this judge who is on this case. So it's people weren't looking at the bigger problem. They were looking at this case. And the thing is, right, is I'm it's not, no one's got standing, right? And I will come to Brett separately in a minute, but no individual. I don't have standing. No person who is not a party or has not addressed the judge at some point on this case has standing to just go and ask and try and get the judge recused. And the bar to do it, even for the parties directly affected, is so incredibly high that it you have to have concrete, yeah, this is improper. And the problem is, right,
Hmm.
is whilst I when you look at everything Cassidy said, I sat back and went, oh well, that's a lot. But also, and it sounds like it would be difficult to perceive him to be impartial, and that's the key word, is the
Hmm.
perception. Yeah, you have to be seen
Hmm.
to be not being biased. And it there's when you look at the watch the video Cassie did, which was incredibly thorough, and I expect nothing less of her because she is amazing at doing this.
Yeah, she is.
Um, it is incredibly persuasive, and I was sat there going, yeah, that's dodgy territory. The financial connections alone, I just want to say, I never bought into anything that was brought to me about his brother. I didn't, because it was too far away, too far removed. Um, and that's going by the rules of these things, not by, what I personally think, which is what is the only thing that's applicable here. But also, all those financial connections are not necessarily improper if they've all been properly disclosed. You know,
And we don't
it,
know what has and hasn't been
we don't know.
disclosed.
That's the missing information. We don't know, is
Hmm.
Wayfarer aware of all of this stuff? And that they're happy because they will know what's normal and what's normal. They will know if something's too biased, too close of a connection or not, and they will have made their own judgment on that.
Oh, Christina said
But
it was Nate the lawyer. Yeah, you're right, Christina. It was Nate the lawyer, not Popcorn Planet. That's where I saw it. Nate the
yeah,
lawyer had the video of the Supreme Court judges.
but the
Yeah.
one thing
I
I will
I agree
say,
I agree with
I
you. I agree with you as far as what you were just saying about the perception
yeah,
part. Like,
yeah,
how is the public perceiving it, or how can somebody else perceive it? But then
yeah.
again, it's if they've already disclosed it.
If they've disclosed it, then it's not improper, you know. Then that is all is required. It's if he's hiding
Oh,
something, you know, then that's where the problem is. The fact that it sounds terrible to everyone else is not the relevant part. And I say that like, I don't know how much is disclosed. So me hearing it as a member of the public, I'm like, oh my God. But also I know from experience that if it's all been properly disclosed, then there is no issue here at all. And the other thing I would say is that if people with the best intentions in the world, you know, if you're going to have the hardest job in the world. It's going to be almost impossible, actually, for ordinary members of the citizens to have any success trying to get the judge recused because they're not happy. So all it's going to do is just, for me, I'm worried it will piss him off, to be honest. I don't know how to word it any other way. I like, Wayfarer are still in. They've still got claims they can come back with. They've got all the claims together. They can still tell the entirety of their story and defend what they need to. So they're still actually in a really good position. And I know that even when Friedman's letter was the motion to strike, and it was perceived that he was threatened with sanctions. People were like, "Oh my God, the judge come down really hard." No, 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 he did not. If the
he
judge
didn't
was coming
sanction
down
them.
hard on Friedman, he would have just sanctioned him there and then. You know,
Yeah,
the
yeah, he
judge did
didn't
not come
sanction
down
them.
hard,
He didn't sanction them.
and
But
it, and it was
the one part I
sorry,
didn't
it was the
agree.
right sorry.
The one part I
Go
didn't
on, you
agree
go.
with you on was the Doug Lehman part, because I do feel like that connection is compelling because he's got like a close connection to the Hollywood, quote unquote mafia style type of stuff. Like, Hollywood has always functioned in this like little bubble of like, everybody kind of knows everybody, and there's all these favors going around. So to me, it was compelling that he was adjacent to. A lot of people are like, "Oh, he just made a commercial,"
Well,
but no, he's like a big director. He did like Edge of Tomorrow. Like, once I started doing deep dives, like after Cassidy's video and stuff, it was like 2 days ago, and I was like, okay, so who is this guy? And then
yeah,
Brett's docket that we're gonna get into, he goes further
yeah,
into how he was connected to Marvel previously and things like that. So that's
yeah.
the only
I
part that
agree.
I felt like, I do think that the Lehman thing could be a conflict of interest, but again, we don't know if that was disclosed, like, hey, this is my brother, and so, like, full
But the
disclosure.
thing is, right, is I think there's a good chance um, that I mean, I don't think it would have been disclosed, and the reason it doesn't need to be honest, because yes, it goes back to what I was saying a minute ago, though, about everything else. It's one thing if someone who doesn't understand what the rules are and what kind of connections matter and what don't, but
Mm.
a brother who, honest to God, people were saying, "Oh, he worked with Blake Lively." He worked with Blake Lively in a 3-minute advert with the entire cast of Gossip Girl. She had one line. It could not have taken more than a half a day's filming, if that. And it was in 2008. I mean, we don't even know if he liked her. You know what I mean? There's information missing, but it already sounds that a lot, just that on its own, right? As far as the brother worked with Blake Lively, it already sounds like a stretch. But there's information also missing, so and it would not meet the bar, and the fact that
And the
Selma
legal
Hayek's
perspective's
husband,
important in that part, because, like, I'm just a layman, so
yeah, no, it'd be nothing. It would honestly be nothing because people overlap. Like someone said to me yesterday, "Oh well." well, Michael Gottlieb's had all these cases in front of Judge Lyman, and Friedman hasn't. I was like, well, yeah, Michael Gottlieb, he kind of litigates in that court on a regular basis. So did Ben Chew in front of Judge Penny. Friedman is based in California.
Mm-hmm.
The odds of him coming into New York on a regular basis and going before Friedman is quite small. So, I mean, it's quite it's a different kind of scenario. I knew what they were saying, and I could see what they were saying. Oh, well, maybe there's, friendship built up. Not necessarily. That's not necessarily how it works. And even in that situation, you know, lawyers and judges, of course, they will cross paths all the time because they're working in the industry, and they will be against each other some days. We've got lawyers who are working together for parties right now who have also sparred against each other in courts before. You want there to be, you expect, and you have to have faith that there would be some maintenance of professionality amongst them. Otherwise, you know you're going to find connections everywhere,
And I feel
in
like
my
when
view. And
Friedman
that's how it is in the UK.
when Friedman talked about Judge Lehman, I mean, at least for me, when he talked about Judge Friedman, he was like, he said something about how he gave them the roadmap to better be successful with his claims. And to me, that softened
Yeah,
me to Judge Lehman, because I'm like, why am I fighting a battle that he's not fight? Like, it seems like he's just cool. Like, okay, this is his decision. Because at the end of the day, it's like,
yeah,
who's more persuasive, right? And I
yeah,
read it a couple times, his decision and stuff. And because a couple times I missed some of the footnotes, and it was a really long document, and there was a lot. So it took me a couple reads to see. But again, I'm not a lawyer. Even yesterday when I was watching Omar's video where he's like going through and he's like, I don't know if it was him or Rachel or somebody said that there was like unpublished cases that he had cited when there was published cases that would have leaned in Baldoni's favor and stuff. So stuff like that goes over my head because I'm not a lawyer. Um,
yeah.
so that's always why it's interesting to see lawyers' takes on things. But for me personally, it did soften me on, or soften the blow of, like, initially everybody was like down and everybody's like, he lost, or, not knowing what to do, and, trying to go against the judge and things like that. And then when he did that interview for me, it was like, okay, well, seems like he gave him a roadmap to be successful in these other claims, which to me seemed like
And yeah,
a huge, like, important thing. And it made me feel less like angry, I guess, about the decision. And then as I started to read the document more and more, I was like, okay, well, this is what he said. And I didn't really agree with some of the stuff, like the fact that he said that there was no statement about, or the statement that he had put out that Ryan Reynolds had written up or whatever. But then I realized, I was like, a lot of the stuff that was put in the exhibit A wasn't like really honed in on in the actual like first amended complaint. So I could
yeah,
see why we would have more information, because when you read the timeline, it's like, oh, duh, it's like a no brainer. Like, look, it's all here from beginning to end, the story.
exactly. But they
And you don't have to
disregarded
like
that for
take
that.
pieces from different things and then see like which action each thing applies to. So I can
Hmm.
see where some of his decisions may have been like that. But um once Cassidy's video came out, I was like, okay, well, maybe this does have legs. Maybe there is something going on with the judge, and maybe he does have this incentive. And so it did make me think twice about him. And at least, even if it turns out to be nothing, at least there's like a microscope or a bigger conversation about, judges and their, like, what should they be disclosing? Because we as the public, like, we should be allowed to see all this stuff, like in these court cases and stuff. Like, there's already not cameras allowed in the courtroom and all this stuff. It's like there's lack of trust in the judicial system right now. So I feel like we're having these conversations to how can we make the judicial system better for us, for the public.
Yeah,
How can we, and they do stuff like that, like financial disclosures and stuff. So
yeah,
it, to me at least, it was a good conversation and something, another little rabbit hole to go down that's outside of just, Blake
yeah.
Lively and
I
Taylor
do,
Swift. And it was an interesting
I
one
do.
because even in the Diddy trial right now, there's a lot of stuff that's being kept off the docket by the judge. And Matthew from Inner City Press has gone in there and been like, hey, you know, you need to put stuff on the docket. And the judge is like, okay, yeah, we're going to start putting stuff on the docket. Yet they're still discussing things in court and all this stuff. And, you know, Matt's like, okay, why was that not filed into the docket? Why was this piece of evidence not filed into the docket? Why is the public, you know, not able to know, and you're saying you're going to do something? Like, it it seems like very secretive, the judicial system. And like, one of the great parts about the whole Baldoni trial is that we're all being educated. Like, I follow trials, the Johnny Depp and all that stuff, but I feel like this one's really honing in on like education, especially like you have the Ask Two Lawyers, you have all these people, we have you know, that even though you're from the UK and stuff, but there's a lot of people who are like, oh, well, what does this mean? And I'm still learning myself, like discovery stuff and all kinds of stuff. It's like
Yeah,
we're educating ourselves on how the judicial process actually works, not just, oh,
yeah,
this is a trial and this is, you know, lawyers are just arguing with each other. It's like, no, it's like this is the deepest I've ever gone into any court case. Like, I've never knew about court listener or anything, like how to access a public docket. I never knew any of this stuff before Baldoni. So
no,
anyways, I
it's
went
been
on a little rant
interesting.
there, but
No, no,
the
no,
thing that I
that's it's good.
appreciated about Cassidy's video, regardless of whether it turns out that it's something or it's nothing, is that the conversations that we're having about, you know, the stuff, I felt like it's really cool. I was on her live last night and I really just enjoyed that we were able to just have a discussion about, you know, the judges and stuff and all
Yeah.
that. So anyways, do you want to get into the Brett McDowell stuff?
Yeah, yeah, we can do that.
Yeah.
So we kind of segue.
Okay.
So this is the one person, other than the actual parties, because we have to be clear about who's who here. Brett is a non-party, so he what he did was obviously when Marvel were subpoenaed by Wayfarer, they filed their motion to quash. Well, the discovery from Marvel is relevant to Brett, who is considering because he's got you know I've covered it quite a lot. I know Ashley Brianna Eve has, and I know Mandy Magnan has as well. Um, he has you know his service dog was the dog pool that they used was basically used to was the look had a very distinctive look to his service dog and was basically we believe picked specifically to mock Brett. Brett was formerly on he was a stand-in for Ryan Reynolds on Deadpool 2. And there are multiple connections because they are both kind of they're from a similar area to Ryan Reynolds. They you know kind of well they have worked with him. I know Aiko's ex-husband has worked as well on a number of films with Ryan Reynolds, including Free Guy and Deadpool and Wolverine. He's a like an artist, he is. Um, and there are there are quite a few convictions actually, um, but they've had their lives utterly ruined and turned upside down by a series of related events. I'm not going to say you know it was definitely this and it was definitely that because there are things that are still unknown, and that's why Brett filed a motion to intervene to try and obtain preservation to get preservation of the discovery that come from Marvel. Um, when the motion to dismiss happened and Ryan Reynolds got dismissed, and the motion to quash was basically thrown out because it was no longer needed. Um, so obviously, then Brett's motion to intervene also become redundant, and that was thrown out. Today, I think that you know, and this is going to be it's still a long shot. I'm going to be really honest, and I have said this. Brett and Aiko are really good friends of mine. I absolutely love and adore them, and I trust them with everything. But I'm always very upfront and say, look, this is a you know this is oh you stand a really good chance, or this might not work. And I did say to Brett, this is a long shot. I think you've done the right thing. I think it's a moment where if you didn't do it, you'll never know. You might even regret not doing it and missing your chance. But Brett has filed a motion calling for recusal of Judge Lyman. And TJ, I'm going to let you
Yeah,
take it from here.
I can kind of summarize it a bit because I actually did a little bit of reading on it prior to coming on here. So um I'm gonna backtrack just a little bit just because so I can get my bearings
Yeah,
on like the whole story. So Brett McDowell and Aiko, this couple that she
Aiko.
basically, yeah, Aiko, sorry, Aiko, just you told the story of who they are, but one of the things that connects them to this case is the um it's called like symbolic like representation of like their likeness. And that was like the core of one of the arguments that Brett McDowell had put into his paperwork, which was that their likeness was being like used or impersonated by um, Nice Pool and stuff, and he wanted all that stuff preserved and all that. Well, what he's arguing in this is that in this new motion that he just filed, is that he feels that it's unfair that the Wayfair parties are allowed to continue in the case with discovery and stuff when they are alleging the same things, which is with the four things that he's able to amend and stuff. It includes the stuff about like the impersonation or the likeness and stuff like that, that it could still include that in these amended things. And so he's saying, like, why is his getting thrown out when there's still a continuation where it still kind of like pertains. And one of the things that points that he's making, and he goes really into it, which I haven't dug into all the chapters of the indigenous stuff, but because there's a indigenous angle with him being I believe it's Red River Manta. I think Aiko's in the chat.
She is in the chat.
Maybe you can clarify, Aiko. It's Red River something. So
Red,
he's
it's
been,
Red River Métis.
yeah, Métis. And so um he's coming at it from a perspective where um there's in Marvel, Deadpool and Wolverine are obviously, connected. That's the film that is in question here. And in the Wolverine films, I'm trying to summarize this as like best I can, sorry. Um
No, no, you're doing great.
yeah, Wolverine has a lot of like indigenous like misrepresentations. And again, I haven't really delved into the whole Wolverine part because it's a lot. But he's saying that because he, brought these things to the judge, that he feels that the judge has been showing a bias towards, continuing some claims, and yet he's kind of not in it. And I'm summarizing this, so I could be wrong again because I just read it right before here. But so then after that, he goes into the final paragraph of this motion is that he feels like the judge should be recused because he goes way deeper into the connections of Doug Lehman about his connections with Marvel previously, where uh, he was supposed to direct Gambit, I believe, a couple years ago, and then how Aiko's ex-husband did work for Marvel, and the one that I found compelling, and again, I just did like a quick read on it, so was the Lionsgate part because he associates Lionsgate, who Doug Lehman works for as a director, to Ryan Reynolds, and basically saying that there is a bias there because all of these people work in connection to each other. So like, let's
And
say that.
Lionsgate was connected to Mythic Quest, which was
Mm-hmm.
one of the sort of
So it's like,
um
how can you be
stuff based
impartial
on their
to
IP.
my request when it includes
Yeah.
Aiko, and Aiko's husband is connected to Doug Lehman? And so, like, did you just dismiss my request because it's all connected? Like, that's what I got from it. He's basically just asking these questions that he feels like there should be a recusal because I've found these things. And hold on, because I had pulled up this one part. I mean, he goes into it, and again, I haven't really like read the full thing, but which is the one that I was gonna pull up? Oh dang, I can't even hit the back arrow. Oh wait, hold on. Here we go. It's that last paragraph where he's asking for the recusal. He goes into mythic quests and stuff like that. And he points out to the judge, and if anything, I mean, I don't know, maybe it's just putting the judge on notice about this stuff, but he goes into the T-Mobile ownership and then into
Hold
the Mint
on.
Mobile, the
Aiko,
2023.
Aiko's, sorry, I've just put up a message from Aiko who explains
Okay.
it. So one of the co-creators of Wolverine states that his mother is Canadian First Nations in Alberta. The population there were majority First Nations and Red River Métis at the time of his birth. So
So it's
there's
almost
that.
like
That's just from
cultural, like trying
cultural
to
appropriation
appropriate, yeah, kind of like that, but they're also like not including
Uh,
like
and underrepresentation
they're
as
not,
well.
yeah, misrepresentation or giving credit where credit's due, something like that.
Yeah,
And so he goes into, I mean, he lays it all out there, all the sleuthing. He goes into the T-Mobile, he goes into the stock in Apple TV or Apple, and Apple TV's who runs Mythic Quest. And he goes into Paramount Pictures, which if you've watched Cassidy video, these are all the stocks, the big ones that were kind of like a really big connection. And then he goes into, it says these disclosures reveal that he holds financial interests in virtually every corporate entity that they named that Brett and Ico named in their filings. And so he goes Apple, Amazon, T-Mobile, and Lionsgate as the last one. So um, he says
yeah.
respectfully submits this, and that no reasonable observer would believe that justice is being administered impartially where the presiding judge is materially invested in the very ecosystem alleged to have caused the harm. So he's saying like you're involved, if not through your brother, because like you said, maybe the brother thinks a weak argument, but you
But no,
were
here I
invested in
don't
this
think it
stuff.
is
But
though.
I don't think
This is a
that
more direct link for me. This is more direct. But the only problem I have from a legal perspective is, as I said at the very start, is the weakness here is Brett is not a party. He never was a party. He is a non-party. So I think that, for me, like there's more standing than the outraged public to bring this, but Wayfarer would have more standing than Brett, which I don't think anyone would dispute that because they are parties to the claim. It's their lawsuit. However, he filed a legitimate request. He followed all the rules. So if I think there's questions that need to be answered, that need to be looked at and answered here. And obviously, if the judge overseeing all of this is connected, is a sibling to someone who has got quite close. This is a close connection. If this was Wayfarer, instead of Brett, then I'd be like, yeah, that's a problem. That's quite a big problem.
because he
But
goes even further into making the connection, which this is a piece that I thought was important, which is that the
yeah,
Gambit character that Doug Liman was supposed to direct. So Doug Liman was supposed to direct a standalone Gambit movie, but then for some reason he left it. But he's saying basically the reactivation of the character in Deadpool um,
yeah,
further implicates Doug Liman's former attachments to it, and so he's basically trying to say like it could be like there could be a reconnection there. We don't know if he's going to come back on to work with the Gambit character in the future, or I guess that's what he's trying to say. But I mean, he did
mm,
find a lot of connections, and so what he's trying to say is this getting dismissed because it had to be dismissed, or was there other reasonings for it being dismissed? And I haven't read the dismissal or how it got dismissed or anything. So I'm kind of like coming in blind a little bit. I just read it, right before we came on here. So I don't know on what grounds did the judge give grounds. I don't know if Aiko's still in the chat, but what grounds did the judge say for the like not hearing the preservation, or not allowing him to intervene in the case anymore when there's still actions pending in which some of that
Well,
discovery could be
I
used.
mean, the judge could have always, it was always up to the judge whether he allowed the motion to intervene or denied it. So it was never a given that he was going to say, "Oh yeah, that's the, you're invited, you're welcome." Um, but for me, because they wouldn't have been, no one would have contacted him and say, "Well, this is why we're denying your request." It was a flat, is denied.
Mm.
The reason that for me I think it happened is because there was not going to be any discovery against Marvel because the subpoena was quashed because it became moot because Ryan
Oh,
Reynolds was dismissed
yeah, I remember
because
you did post that.
and that was the limitation of their intervention was just the discovery on Marvel. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because so if Marvel's not, it says Brett can answer that. Um, so Marvel's not in the conversation at all anymore with anything.
No,
Even
it's not.
even in the breach of contract stuff, that's not coming up.
No, no, it's
Hmm.
nothing to do with Marvel because the contracts are going to be Baldoni's with like the likes of Ari Emanuel. Well, WME. It's not going to be anything to do with Deadpool and Wolverine.
Huh. Well, that is interesting because I still thought that some of the nice pool stuff would come in on um like the breach of the like contract. I don't know how I felt like it would fit. I
No,
remember I was like thinking about it one day and I was like, "Oh, well, that doesn't mean that." So
no,
all of the nice pool stuff is done then.
oh, it's all gone. The judge deemed it as an
Yeah, I
opinion
did see that in
basically.
there, but I thought that like interfering with like his job, like interfering with his like monetary, like, because if he's like mocking him in like a movie, wouldn't that be like interfering with his contracts, because like he wouldn't get future jobs because now he's seen as this like, I don't know why I just thought it would still fit, but maybe not, maybe I'm wrong.
No, 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 because it's not Ryan Reynolds' contract with Marvel that's affected here. So there was no contract that was affected by anything to do with Deadpool and Wolverine. Um, it was that the character was used to mock and kind of bully Justin Baldoni. But I mean, satire, using likenesses for satire, it is kind of a you know First Amendment. It's protected under the First Amendment, really. So the one good thing we had about all of that though was we had kind of it was pretty much it was all but confirmed by Ryan Reynolds that, yeah, Justin Baldoni, the whole Nice Pool was based on Justin Baldoni. I think Friedman could still make an issue of it, though. I think he will still make an issue of it and bring it up in the defense against the sexual harassment claims, because that'll be one of the things he'll be throwing at Blake Lively. He'll be, well, because given how traumatized you were, your husband took it really well, so well that he made this, great big you know, 2 hour long joke about it, which, echoed around the world in all the cinemas. That's what he'll do. He won't get all the discovery, but we don't need that anymore because Ryan Reynolds pretty much said, he didn't deny that Nicepool was Justin Baldoni. We've got enough Easter eggs. We've done the sleuthing, us two, and with several others. And how many have we picked up where we've gone, oh yeah, now it all makes sense. Well, Brian Friedman's just going to go in and go, doof, 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 lay the foundation out. This is definitely Justin Baldoni. And then remind, Blake Lively, well, your husband didn't deny it. He had the opportunity to flat out say, no, this was not Justin Baldoni. And he chose not to. So, hmm,
Hmm.
admission by silence.
Yeah. Let me look at the letter that he's saying, because he's saying that there was a procedural oversight in failing to docket or respond to movements June 9th letter. So I think after it was like he wasn't allowed to intervene, then he tried to do a letter a couple days ago. clarify the status of any sealed discovery materials submitted or referenced by movement. So let me see what that letter was about, because he's basically saying that the letter wasn't docketed. Was it like what happened with Colonel, where it was like she had submitted
No,
it to
his
the wrong
letters
one,
went
that
on the
he's
docket. I'm pretty sure they did because
did the
I
June
pulled, you
June
know,
did the June 9th one go on the docket?
I haven't seen that one. No, I didn't. What one was? No, I didn't see that actually.
Because that's what he's saying, that did not get docketed.
Yeah, but it takes
He's
a few
saying,
days though.
so what he's saying in this letter is, he's saying, I respectfully request that the court reserve judgment on my Rule 24 motion. So I think that's the one, is the Rule 24 the
Where,
motion to intervene? It says until
no,
the
that's where
amended
that was.
complaint is submitted.
Yeah, no,
What's
that's
the
the one
Rule
he
24?
submitted when that's the one he submitted when he thought they were going to settle. I think.
To still
Pretty sure
preserve
that is.
discovery? Is that just like a discovery preservation
Yeah,
one? Um,
yeah, because technically the judge hasn't said anything about that one. So you know, the decision was made on the motion to intervene, but there's no kind of you know, there
yeah,
doesn't
that's
appear to be a
See, that's
decision
what
on
he
that
was
one.
saying. I was right on that, because he's saying that he feels that he says, as the forthcoming amended complaints may incorporate some legal theories concerning dog pull, nice pull, or like, he's saying that maybe the amended complaint may still include some of the nice pull stuff.
Mm,
And so he wants the judge to wait, or to like not dismiss him until the amended complaint. But I guess this is the letter that was not docketed, that he's claiming in that exhibit, that it wasn't docketed. Because then if I go back, so his final thing in the last paragraph, where but he does lay it out in a bunch of paragraphs. I skipped through all the meat of it with the indigenous stuff, and just scroll down to the T with the judge. But okay, so at the very end, he basically says that he wants the judge to acknowledge the procedural oversight in failing to docket or respond to his letter, and clarify the status of any sealed discovery. And then he straight up says, order the recusal or disqualification from all current and future proceedings on the grounds that his impartiality might reasonably be questioned. And in another part that I had read before I came on here, there was a I don't know if it was like a case or something. He stated case law or something. Let me see if I can find it, about how it doesn't have to, like, you don't have to prove bias. It just has to be like the reasonable person can perceive it. Let me look
yeah,
if I can find it. But I remember reading that part where it might have been at the very top, that one can move to do it if you perceive it. Dang, I don't know where it's at. But I mean, it's compelling nonetheless if it hits the docket, and now the judge is aware that, like, this is all out there if it's going to be in a public docket.
yeah. No, I agree with you.
So
I
pretty
mean,
heavy stuff here at the end. We started off, well, I saw someone in the chat said, "Can you talk about Taylor Swift?" Y'all can go back and rewind it, or
oh yeah, an
rewatch
hour
it
and
a
a
little
half
later.
ago.
Uh can you rewind it? No. Y'all can be part of replay crew for the Taylor stuff, because we covered that in the first hour. But
Oh yeah, we
that
covered
was
that for a
pretty like
while.
bouncy, and now we get into this heavy stuff. I'm like, oh, like, this is getting
Well, I
serious.
mean, it's I do find it whenever I talk about Brett and Aiko's story, I do feel I get more nervous with that than I ever do with any of the others because it. I mean, it's not my story, but it feels personal. Do you know what I mean? I've kind of I know so much about it. I know a lot about them, and you know, we've talked at length. I've seen everything. You know, I've seen absolutely. As it, you know, anything they've said has backed up with something, and I have seen that something. There's a huge Google Drive that I've had access to, and I know Ashley, Brianna Eve has, Mandy Magnan has. You know, and it's been such a good thing for me, right? Because they have not got the resources that Justin Bold only has, that Wayfair has. They don't have a Steve Sarowitz on their team. and they clearly don't have the resources that Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively have. They could have, and this has impeded their career. Now, I am going to be getting Aiko on for a special guest session because honestly, that woman is the most fascinating woman I've ever spoken to in my life. She's absolutely lovely, but the career-wise, so much talent, can do so many different things, and I really want to kind of, there's all this going on with the court, and they're obviously pursuing their justice, that, doing what they feel they need to do, and I am by their side and cheering them on 100%. But, there is the other side of it, which is, we want to start making some movement, to getting them back, in and, getting Aiko got, quite high up in her profession. She's done some pretty amazing things, and I want to sit down with her and kind of, have a candid conversation like this and hear all about her and share that information,
Yeah,
like
and right
who she
before
is.
right before the GameCon thing happened to her, she was on the up and up. And so for
Yeah,
me, that
yeah,
was like the most
absolutely.
compelling because it's almost like two stories. And I know a lot of people don't get into the Aiko and Brett stuff because there's already so much reading and so much, stuff with
Oh, it's
Baldoni and
loads,
Lively
yeah,
and stuff.
and I
And
get that.
so it's like a whole other case. And then even with the Brett, so Brett's kind of connected to the Baldoni stuff through like Deadpool Wolverine and stuff. And so that's kind of like was my gateway.
Yeah.
But then Aiko has her own story with the Mickey Mythic
Oh,
Quest
yeah.
and stuff. And not only that, but there's like a whole other aspect of not just like the mythic quests and all that. There's an aspect in the gaming industry which I thought was fascinating. But there's an aspect of where she went to go ask for help from
Yeah.
like
From
victims
the
advocate org that was
it
supposed
was
to be there
fem
to
it
help
was the,
her.
it was the Female Composers Safety League.
Yeah, and there's a whole backstory there that I was really, I mean, I went into a deep dive on that for a couple days where they, didn't help her initially, but then once this started to get traction with Brett and then her story started to get traction, she got an email from I don't know if it's the owner of the organization, the founder, I believe, of the organization saying like, well, we can help you, but um you need to remove the story off of Instagram or your story or something. And so yeah, there's a whole other side quest in that story. So it'd be nice to get her individual story when you do have her. Oh, there she is. It's a Time's Up and Female Composer Safety League and the Jury Prop.
Yeah,
So it goes into like a broader public conversation about these victim advocate orgs. And one of the things that I'm working on right now is a deep dive kind of like investigative series on the victim industrial complex and things that are happening with these different organizations and things like that. um which I've just been gathering clips because it's just going to be kind of like a narrated thing. Like, I mean, no person's going to be narrated. It's going to be self-narrated through like clips of just people's voices, saying it, so that way it doesn't get misconstrued or anything. And it takes a long time to find these clips, but um yeah, her story intrigues me because it ties into this victim advocacy, capitalizing on things um, when it's convenient or when it's headlines or things like that. So I'm really looking forward to that episode with Aiko. Yeah, it says Aiko's
yeah,
career alone and how she got into the field is interesting. Yeah, and especially the gaming industry. She was one of the first females to get as high as she did
yeah,
um at the
and
time.
one of the first female Japanese as well. I wanna make sure her heritage is also kind of given, um, the lift that it deserves.
Mhm. Yeah,
But yes,
I do think, and thank you for giving her that spotlight. And you were one of the first people that introduced this story to me. So I'm grateful for that you gave them a platform, because I still remember in the very beginning when Brett was trying to get his story out there, and a lot of people wouldn't read it because it was
no,
a big long thread. And me and we love threads. We be threading it up, and
yeah,
we'll take on a
definitely.
good thread. We'll deep dive and take on a good thread. But um I'm pretty
But
sure I
there's
saw it on your page and then I retweeted it. It was way in our early beginnings, way back in January. We were babies, baby
yeah,
content creators.
we
Um,
were we were nothing.
we were
But
babies.
there is a way there's a way to present in a thread so that it catches eyes. And I kind of all I did was really was take the thread, take the well, it wasn't a thread, it was the longest post I've ever seen, like a single post. It
Yeah,
was full of
Aiko's was just
detail.
one single post. It was, yeah.
Yeah, but the images you couldn't make them out because there were so many and they were kind of crushed together and a lot of information and everything, and it was just a lot for someone to digest. But I mean, I can digest information because that's what's what you do when you with filings is looking at a lot of words and kind of trying to make sense of it. So I just kind of remodeled the thread and very I used a bit of strategy here was I took the most relevant and the biggest visual part of their entire story, which was Dogpool, which is obviously relevant because of the connection to Deadpool and Wolverine, and we had Ryan Reynolds as a party. And then, you know, I run with that, and then
Because it
Ashley picked it up.
established an MO for me. This is before
Yeah,
we
it
we
did.
found the Forbes interview and like that she would take over films and stuff like that, which was a whole other
Yeah,
aspect. But it established an MO for me of because when the Nice Pool stuff first was like, oh no, that's not Baldoni. Like people are reaching, like it wasn't compelling in the very beginning, but then I was like, oh wait, well if he's done it once, and then the dog pull one, obviously, like you said, you grabbed the most easiest to understand and visually see, which was the
yeah.
dog pull one, because I heard you
And
yesterday when you were on, I think with Elsric or somebody that um
Mandy.
yeah, with Mandy, that you were talking about the dog pull one, how it's like it's obvious, like like how is it that he had a service dog and he met him and then it doesn't look anything like the dog? So you took like the one piece, and even me right now when I was trying to summarize the filing, I'm over here looking like Charlie Day. I was like, okay, so Wolverine was indigenous. Like, there's so much information. It's hard
It is
to
hard.
like tell the story in like a linear way that makes sense. And you have like a
Yeah.
really like uncanny ability to be able to like sum it up in a way where it's like, oh, okay, I understand what's going on. Um
No,
so yeah, I
I mean
appreciate you for
that's
that.
no, I love you too. I mean that's just that's law. That's what I'm trained to do. And I do I really enjoy it. And I mean their story means yeah, it means a lot actually. And I've been challenged on every part of it, and and there's been things people have said, well, are they just jumping on because of the law? No, actually no, because they were filing stuff years before before Justin Baldoni even bought the rights to the book,
Yeah.
let alone made the
In
film.
the in the
There was stuff
Supreme
going
Court
on.
of, I don't know if it's called the Supreme Court, but it's British Columbia, I believe, was the first
Yeah,
filing where this became public record, was
yeah, yeah.
them basically saying like, okay, this is what had happened. And yeah, so a lot of people who say, oh, they just came on with the, it's been going on for quite a while. I think that once
Oh
they
yeah, it's
saw
been going.
that he's
Yeah,
doing it
this has
again,
been
so to
going on,
speak.
and there's yeah, and there's other elements to it. I mean, I think this has been made public as well, and I know I'll do a separate, sort of chat in show with Brett as well. So I'm not just doing Aiko, but I'm excited to do Aiko first because because her career is like incredible, and we talk about it all the time. And there's this secret. The artwork that people see with my slides and my thumbnails, Aiko does that. That
Oh, yeah.
you said it was beautiful, Elliot. I'm not
Yeah.
taking credit for that. I'm going to say to people, no, Aiko can do that. That is the kind of talent she has. It's crazy good. And Newton, my owl,
And her story, her
I
s-
literally I went to her and I said, I want an owl that has little glasses and looks educational. And honestly, she just lifted the idea
drew
right
it
out of
up.
my head.
And her
Yeah,
story's
she
really
did.
relevant right now with the whole woman's, they're
Yeah,
trying
yeah,
to
no,
bring back this
exactly.
woman's movement of, the Me Too era and all this other stuff. But it's like her story really shows that there are some people who are heard and who are quote unquote believed. And then there's the people who If it's believe all women, then what? How did I Aiko's story? I keep saying her name wrong. Sorry, Aiko, right?
Yes,
Aiko?
Aiko.
Aiko. How did Aiko's story fall into the cracks of the system if it's Believe All
Yeah.
Women? If this organization, the Female Composers League, was for Believe All Women, why wasn't she believed right away? Why wasn't her story getting media attention? Because if you think about it, Blake Lively is friends with Rob McKinley, or her and Ryan are friends with them. And if it's these allegations of Mythic Quest being about their experience and all this stuff, it's like, how can you say that you're pro women when here this woman had an experience, and then her experience was turned into allegedly turned into this TV episode. So
Yeah.
to me, it feels like it's really relevant right now around all the conversations we're having about Believe All Women and the victim orgs that attach themselves to Believe All Women. So that's why I do feel like, yeah, her story really needs to be heard.
It really does. And I mean, there's so much more as well. There's stuff that has not been, I think that there is stuff that has been, you know, the stuff that hasn't been talked about as much as well. I mean, the thread I've done so far, that's just phase one. There is a lot more to come. We're just kind of letting people digest bit by bit because I appreciate it's a lot, and people
Hmm.
you can't keep their attention if you give them too much at one go. Um, so we've still got work to do with Brett and Akos, and I'll be obviously covering what happens with this motion to recuse. I have I'm
I'm
quite fortunate that
scared.
I have
Are you
access to
scared?
the first-hand source.
Are
So
you scared?
you know,
I'm scared. I'm scared that the
I'm
judge is
I'm
going to be like,
excited,
"What?"
scared. But the thing is, right though, CJ is, and I said this is the one thing I said to both Brett and Aiko was, as much it is a long shot, but if you don't do it, you'll always wonder.
Yeah.
If nothing comes of this, they are literally no worse off than they were, yesterday. But if something
Well,
does
because I'm
come of
also
this, right?
I don't challenge authority. So like like when Cassidy did her deep dive, I was
Oh,
like, oh whoa, that was brave.
yeah,
Or when like Colonel will say stuff on her channel like against like these big systems. Like I'm not even me doing this victim stuff deep dive. As I'm clipping it all together, I'm like, is this ever gonna actually be a thing? Am I actually ever gonna be brave enough to like put it out there? Because that's the part that scares me. I'm like, oh wow, that's like really brave because you really just told the judge, like, hey, I'm clocking you. This is what I found, and this is why I think that
yeah,
this decision might have been a little biased. So, I think that's why like it makes my heart beat like, oh wow, like it's actually official. It's gonna be in a
yeah.
docket. He's gonna read it, like, because I don't challenge authority, and I do admire the people who do like put it out there. People like Cassidy and investigative journalists and stuff like that because you know, these systems are really big, and there's a lot that can
Mm.
happen. We saw Ryan Reynolds, sit Baldoni down and be like, "Look, he put out the statement, or we're going to take the gloves off." So it's like, challenging these systems is, ooh, it's scary. Like I get chills just talking about it. It's scary.
No, I think they've done the right thing. They've got nothing to lose, as far as I can see. And if it works, if this pays off, and like I say, being very honest, and I've always been honest with them, and it's not always it's not my job to deliver to say to people, well, I'm going to tell you what you want to hear. That's not a good friend as far as I'm concerned. So I'll always say to them, yeah, I think this has got a great chance, or I don't think it's going to do well. I'm not sure. I think there may be an uphill battle. We'll call it that. But I'm really hopeful because it's being proactive. But if something does come of this, because the financial connections are there, and I'm quite content to say people know I've sent things to Brian Friedman. They know I've done that. I've always been open about that. Obviously I've sent the metadata. I sent when you and Kurtz did when you and the Colonel did the video after you found the Ari Emanuel thing. I sent the link over for that, and I sent over both the links for Cassidy's videos because that's what I do. I just kind of drop off and go. you might want to think about looking at this, and then I
Mm-hmm.
leave the ball in their court, which is what it needs to be. It needs to stay in their court, what they do at all times. But
Mm-hmm.
if this changes something for Brett and Aiko, then it could also be a positive change for Wayfarer. It could inspire, it could, make Wayfarer sit and think, well, maybe we need to. But I doubt it, because the impression I got from Friedman was they were going to continue, they were going to do the amendment, and if there was going to be an appeal, it was going to come at the end. I think they wanted to get through the trial and get Lively pinned down to a deposition, which makes sense, because otherwise, if they try to appeal the situation for themselves now, then potentially they're waiting for it puts everything on hold for up to 2 years. And what you don't want is 2 years of Blake Lively running around, playing the victim card. So I can see Wayfarer just want to get through it, get Justin Baldoni's name restored and cleared, and get on with life, and appeal something at the end if it's necessary, is what I think. But I mean, for Brett and Aiko, though, I think they've done what they needed to do, and I think it's the right thing for them to do, so that they're not left wondering, well, what would have happened, or have a regret.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
That
it's
makes
supposed
sense.
to hit the docket today, or when did he say on
Um,
the X post?
I don't know.
And
It can
so
take
all
a
of this
few.
is alleged. I'm just trying to cover my own butt, but we're just discussing what was posted and is being alleged.
Um,
Because
wait, I
when
think
does
it
it
was
hit
filed
the?
today, but it can take a good
I'm
few
trying to
days to
find it.
get
He
to the
said it
docket.
should hit the docket. It was on your page. Let me just go to your page.
Yeah, it's on my page.
Because he did. I thought he said the 13th, but today's the 13th. So is it
Yeah,
gonna hit?
it's not there.
It's not in the docket.
No, it's not on the docket. It can take a
Let me
few
see.
days. His motion to intervene took some time, because I remember I was talking to him in real time when he
Oh,
said
he
he was
just
literally
put it
going to
was
post it.
submitted. It was
Yeah, it's
submitted
submitted
to the
today.
June 13th and will appear on the docket in due course.
Yeah, it took a good week or so for his for the motion to intervene to arrive on the docket. So yeah, I know it's pretty instant with the lawyers who are kind of
So then the
recognised to
judge
the docket.
hasn't, for some reason I thought it had, so then the judge hasn't
He
looked
hasn't
at
seen
it
it.
yet. Yeah.
No, no, he
Wow.
hasn't looked
So
at that one.
we got into a lot of stuff today, Leanne.
I know, but this
Lauren
is what
just
happens. We
posted
haven't.
she's stuck on a flight and she's like, but she's gonna be streaming tonight at 10 on it. So if anybody wants to
Oh, is
go
she?
check out Lauren. She's saying she's gonna cover the recusal motion and the Taylor Swift stuff. So her streams are always fun, 10 p.m. Eastern, she's saying.
Oh God, I'll probably be
I
in
know I'll
bed by
probably
then.
be in the, yeah, no,
It'd be
for
like
you
four
it's already
o'clock in the
late.
morning for me.
I like to get on her late night chats because they're always pretty fun to be on, and it's always good laughs and a good time. But yeah, that was
Well, I'm gonna.
a lot to cover.
Um, there was a lot. I mean, yeah, I'm happy we did this. This is like a really good. We were like, oh, we're gonna just stick with these two topics, and largely we did. But there was so much to talk about, and
I
and
was trying
fill
to
in as
squeeze in
well.
some Diddy in there. I try to squeeze in some Diddy. I
And
always do.
no, well, bring some Diddy. We're all here for Diddy as well. Well, we're not here for Diddy, but it's always it's not bad. Concentrate on this case alone, because honestly, it takes up that much of my time. I am working much longer hours than I ever did when I was working in practice. I promise you, I am, and I'm working on awkward time zones. I don't have time to cover another case, but I'm all right with that, because then that kind of makes me a bit of a resident expert on this case, because I've got all the information and I'm not being distracted. I'm happy with that. But I like having chats with with other people coming in and telling me what's going on with Diddy, I'm going to join you with with Kanye West. So if the dentist one comes in, because I want to know more about the dentist. I really
And
do.
we have to do an episode maybe this weekend. I can catch you and we'll do
Yeah.
a an objection episode because there's been so many new things. We got like Jared Leto, who's just got
Oh my
accused
God.
of Me
Yeah.
Too. And so I don't know if that was just like accusations made to a publication or if there's actual filings for that. I have to delve deeper into that. But yeah, there's a couple
Yeah.
stuff going on in the celebrity court world that I also believe Kevin Costner, that one was really compelling because it does kind of mirror some of the stuff in Baldoni Lively where it talks about having a intimacy coordinator on set and stuff like that. So I
Yeah.
thought that one was compelling and I haven't talked about that one yet. So there's a couple ones. I wanted to do like court minute or something where we just like bam 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 go through them. Um
Yeah. No, we'll do that. Because I'm interested. It's just, I mean, I've said to you on one of the episodes we've done on objections is, for me, did he is, like, because of my own history with domestic abuse, like I would have struggled to follow that in depth anyway, even if it was like the only celebrity case going on. I probably wouldn't have been so. I think it would have been just a bit too much for me. I mean, this case has been quite hard.
so
I'm
somebody in
not
the chat
kidding.
said
Even
somebody in the chat said no Diddy for me pass. We could do
yeah,
that on my channel. The Diddy trial's not for the faint of heart.
no, it doesn't look it, but I mean, I like catching up with the overviews. If same with Russell Brand, like if that happens, I will probably cover that because it's a UK case. So, you know,
Yeah.
I can that's my language. So I'll probably be doing. I'm interested as well. Jared Leto, I am really interested in. I love 30 Seconds to Mars, and I would be disappointed if that turns out to be true. I really like him.
Well, part of the Diddy trial that overlaps with Baldoni is that they're both in SDNY, and I
Yeah,
always found that compelling that it's the same judicial court system and what's allowed and what's not allowed, and uh, there is a kind of an overlap there, but I did kind of have to take a break from that just because there was real world stuff happening, and even with Baldoni, I wasn't covering it as much as I was kind of like became a repost account, and I know prior I haven't gotten any comments recently, but there was a point where my real life got kind of busy, and I was just kind of like reposting, and then somebody called me out like, "You're just a repost account now." I was like, okay, I got real life stuff going on, and there's so many great people to follow, and that can report. That's why it's great that there's so many of us, because when we got to take breaks, there's always someone else that you can follow and still get your tea from. But yeah, I had to take a break from Diddy because it was I was doing something with Dr. Hines, I believe his name is. It's another creator that's covering the Diddy, and we had to read the transcripts one Sunday, and it was like an hour of just reading the transcripts, and it drained me because it was like heavy stuff. I think it was the Cassie testimony, and I just had to be like, look, I need to take a break from Diddy because his stuff is really heavy. So I can
yeah,
understand why some people don't. And now I just kind of do the inner city press, and then Lauren Conlon covers the little wrap up. So I don't immerse myself as much as I was before in it. I kind of just get like the TLDR at the end of the day.
yeah. It's there's so much going on in there, but I mean, it's nice to kind of get through some of the stuff, and you know, like I absolutely love just putting the worlds to rights here with you, and we sort of sit and hash it out.
Yeah,
I'm
and just
gonna,
talk it out.
I'm just talking. Oh yeah, I've got three questions here actually. I want to just quickly answer them. Let's have a look at this one. So
Because Melanie King has the Jared Leto thing on her page, so we'll have to go check that out before we get on my
yeah,
channel
I've
this
I've
weekend.
still got to do a live with Melanie because I mean, she was like the first content creator who kind of picked up. It was the metadata find actually. She picked that up and kind of ran with it, and we've been talking about getting together for ages to do like a show together, but I'm I think well I know she's had a lot of it because her mother's recently died as well, so I'm but I am just to the wall really. um so can Valdoni ask for damages from being fired from WME? In theory, yes, but it does depend on his contract and whether he had like a a fire at will, sort of, mutually kind of, they could just walk away kind of contract. I know not actually Golden. I think it was not actually Golden. He might have mentioned Ryan Reynolds has that kind of contract, but Ryan Reynolds is not at the same star level as Justin Baldoni, so he may have like a notice period, and if that's the case, then that would be like a mutual notice period, I would think. Um, so possibly, possibly, and I think that recording you found as well, CJ, is that's going to be quite key for as far as evidence goes, isn't it? Because we got the actual recording itself that they tried to hide of Ari Emanuel, given all the reasons why he got rid of Justin Baldoni.
Mhm. Yeah, for
So
sure.
that's going to be interesting. Um, can Justin sue for intentional infliction of emotional damages? I don't think so at this point. He hasn't alleged it and he hasn't claimed it. And I think I got the impression he doesn't want his medical records being shared either, because Lively did try and get them because she had that text message, didn't she, about his neurodivergence, and she tried to do discovery on it. And Wayfarer were like, I dare you to go and tell the judge how you found out about his neurodivergence. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do. And he was also, I know, Little Nomad had put a thread about when he went in the hospital and stuff with the
Yeah.
spinal stuff from the stress. So I don't know if that can come in with like testimony or how that
I
works if
think
he's
the
gonna, because he doesn't
I
have a
think the
claim.
spinal no, he doesn't have a claim, but he will want to defend himself for the lift scene. I think the spinal stuff will
Oh,
come
that
in.
could come in. Yeah.
Yeah, but emotional damages is mental health. That's a different area. And I don't, I don't think that he's not pursuing, um, the claim. So I'm guessing that, he's not going to at this point either, and that's fair enough. As a he will have sat down and talked it through the pros and the cons, because there are pros and cons, and he's obviously made a decision that he doesn't want to for whatever reason. So I don't think he's going to bring it in at this point. I'm not even sure if he can. He might be past that point now where you can bring in new claims, um, unless it goes into the second amended. I just can't see it though, because then that opens up the discovery on the neurodivergence, which I got the impression they didn't want to give up. But yeah, I've got one more, and the simple answer to that is I love Not Actually Golden, and I would love to have her on here. Um, I'll have to try and make contact. I think I've never
I
really
love
spoken
her.
to her.
I adore.
I
I
love
love
her. Yeah,
watching her because it brings a little levity to everything when it brings levity to everything when she does her fashions, like Get Ready With Me. Oh, she doesn't do Get Ready With Me, but she does do her
yeah,
makeup and her earrings and stuff. But I like the fashion post because it like breaks it up a little bit. And
yeah.
her outfits, her fashion, her shoe closet. I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed with the fashion aspect of Nag, but her legal commentary is also fun because it's kind of like I'll like set up my phone and it'll go through like the TikToks, and then I feel like I'm
Yeah.
like on FaceTime with her or something because it's just like her just like laying there, like it's very like very casual and stuff. It's fun to listen
It
to.
is. She has a very different kind of, because when I'm doing this, I try to insert a lot of humor because I'm aware that some of these topics are quite hard, for people. Um, and because I'm not restricted by being admitted to any US bar or anything like that. So I haven't like I know that the US attorneys who kind of cover this, they're a little bit more reserved and a bit less outspoken, I guess, because they still have to work in the court systems, and I
Hmm.
understand that completely. Um, and they do. There is a duty. There is absolutely no lawyer should be um kind of dissing on the judge, for want of a better word, and
Hmm.
calling him corrupt and all of this stuff. They are court officers of the court, and they have a duty to uphold the impartiality of the judge. So they are bound by different ability. I don't have that restriction because I'm not licensed in the US, so I can kind of be a bit more, fun with my gifts. I can call someone an asshole. Well, I think they call people assholes, but you know what I mean. I can be more critical if I want to. More often than not, I choose not to. But one thing I do love about her approach is she kind of doesn't really give you all the fluffy stuff around it or hypothesize. She gives you the facts, and she's very matter of fact and direct. Sometimes I find her a little bit on the brash side, but I know why she's like, if you want to know the law, what does this rule say to the letter? Not Actually Golden is, the perfect person to go
and
to for that.
she's great with the education posts too. She's got a lot of
Yeah.
really good education posts. And I know that further up in the conversation, there was someone who was like, "Oh, I don't like Ask Two Lawyers," or something about, their opinions and stuff like that. But there's lawyers that I watch for like opinion law, like Omar sometimes, and then there's
Oh, I love Omar.
education lawyers who like that's why I like Ask Two Lawyers. I don't really care so much for like the opinion aspect of their show, but when they're doing like they did the jury instruction educational post where it was like, this is what a jury instruction form looks like, this is what the questions would be, this is how they can't go on, like it really makes you like clearly see how the
Yeah.
judicial system works. And NAG does a lot of those educational posts of like, this is
Yes, she
what
does.
like motions to brief or whatever. Like she did a whole education series on motions and what are
Mm.
motions and how they work and stuff. So I thought that was pretty cool about the stuff that she posts too, is that she educates the public on how the court system works. It's not just opinion. So she has a little bit of everything,
Yeah.
sprinkles all of it in there. And they're fast
No,
watches too.
yeah, no, exactly. And that's good. And I do that as well because I have it on X as well. Like I've got education posts which are, instead
Yeah,
of having my
written.
alert, they got like a university cap and it'll have, I'll tell you what, you know, um, faithless servant, what does this mean? Where can you find it?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and when I do my videos, sometimes I'll do comparisons between, well, in the UK we don't have depositions, but there is scope for it here, and I'll talk about the UK law and I'll compare UK to US, and
And
or
that's why I
I'll
love your posts too, because you have the
I
little
know,
bulletin board. You have that
yes, I
bulletin,
do.
like the little notes, kind of like notes on one side. So you'll like explain the definition of something or whatever, like
Yeah,
on the little side.
and
Then it'll have like the
and
picture and then
that's
it'll have like the document.
yeah,
So yeah,
exactly.
you
And
got
then
the
you'll
little
have
owl.
I got my out now Newton because we are developing
Newton.
myself and
He pops up when it's an educational like
he
slide.
does because when I do, I'm waiting for ACO, so no pressure, ACO. But ACO's really kindly, and it's obviously taking time. We've had a lot going on, and she obviously does other things like my slides. I would honestly, I wouldn't even have a YouTube channel going if it wasn't for ACO. I really owe it everything. But um, ACO is working on an animation, and we're gonna have like what's called a uh, Newton's school. Newton's Law. Yeah, Newton's Law. Um, it's going to be like a bit of a university thing where I'll do like short videos on, what is this? What does that? What does that mean?
Mhm.
Specifically like actual definitions of things. And we're hoping to kind of catch up with that as well soon. But that is all Newton. So anything on any slide on my videos, on my weekly recap videos,
And you
um,
also
which has
educate
got
on the
the owl.
characters. You educate on the character, like the
Yeah, I do
players
deep
of the
dives on the
game.
characters.
So it's
Yeah,
like
yeah,
educating you on like who is who. Because someone just said, did you guys see the guy with the dog? That's Brett. That's Brett McDowell. She's like, I forget his name. Where's the
yeah.
comment? It's let me scroll back up. But I thought that was funny. The guy with the dog. So she educates because for the longest time I would just be like the gynecologist guy, the birth scene video guy, and then
I
finally did
know.
a video on who he was
Yeah,
and stuff like
we did
that.
it with him out, and the lawsuits as well, because everyone's like, oh, Justin Baldoni got sued by this guy who was dying, or this guy for racial harassment. And I'm like, no, 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 no. So in the end, I just did videos on who are these people and what were the lawsuits, what actually happened, what was the outcome. And I find that easier to do now. I mean, obviously, I'm lifting things I've already done on X. So yeah, I'm happy with. I mean, this has only been going like I think I only really kind of started to take off in March when that's when I started writing about the motions to dismiss was the first things I started to cover. And like
Mhm.
I'm absolutely amazed at where it's going. But honestly, if it wasn't for the entire community that we have here, the creator community, all the support we get as well, my incredible
Yeah.
moderators. Honestly, I'd be lost without Lara, particularly because she does absolutely. She's like my producer.
I see Christina E and
It's
a
just
lot of
amazing. And Brett and
mod
Echo.
groups too.
Yeah,
Christina,
yeah.
Laura. And it's nice to see some of like the same familiar faces and stuff. Yet last night I was in the chat with Cassidy's live, and there is a lot of like the same familiar people. So it's like no matter where you go. And then
Yeah.
your live with Elsie was so funny because StreamYard went down. If anybody was on that one yesterday,
Oh
they're
my
trying to
God, that was
figure out
hilarious.
Riverside, the new streaming platform, and we had such a fun time in the chat. It was a good time. Sometimes I feel like
We really
the
laughed.
chat is a lot funner than when you're like up here, because you get to
Yeah,
see like everything. But I mean, both things are fun. But I love, love, love being in the chat.
see, I like doing this. I love kind of I hate recording the videos actually because then I've got to use a script because I'm trying to recap an entire week. So I can't recall all of that by memory because so much is happening so fast. And I've got the slides in order, so I need I need to write, and it's usually 17 pages of a script for each weekend.
Oh
I'm not
wow.
doing one this week. I'm not doing one for this week, by the way, because I've done that many lives. I don't feel like I need to do an entire recap either. But yeah, but I prefer just jumping on and talking like I'm as if I'm having coffee with someone and just, you know, chewing the fat, so to speak, what we call over here. Just having a casual conversation about things. And I really enjoy it. I do. I didn't think I would, but I've
Yeah,
kind of
I
taken
I
to
like
it
it
now.
here because it's like it's just like you're just talking with your friends and stuff. Like with my show, and maybe we'll do it live tomorrow. I don't know. I'll decide if I can get all the stuff. It's like because I have so many images and stuff, and to bring them up and all that. It'll if we do a live, it'll be my first time doing it live. But it
Yep.
might be funner because the editing part is like you have to find the time to edit it and everything. When you don't do it live, and you know what happened last time where we recorded a video, me and Leanne, for objection, and then I ended up editing it, and then in StreamYard it'll give you like two versions, and then I uploaded the one I thought was the final version, and I deleted it, the edited one, and then I couldn't get it back, and I still have the original, but it wasn't edited, so I ended up losing that. Then I was just so tired because I was like, I just spent hours editing that, and now I got to
And there was
re-edit
that.
it. And then I just got busy with life, and then now we're here. She invited me on her show, so maybe we'll
Oh my God.
we'll do something tomorrow, or well, Sunday's Father's Day, so maybe if you can get around to doing something tomorrow, if not,
Yeah, yeah,
sometime
I'm good
next week.
tomorrow.
But
Okay,
because
we'll
there
do
were
it
some
tomorrow.
questions in the chat here. I know we've already gone 2 hours, but we can cover those tomorrow as far as like the even though it's not court related, but the promos, the marketing promos that Ryan Reynolds has been doing with
Mm.
Robin Lively and the 90210 stars. I those things I have a lot to say on those too. Cause
Okay, yeah, we'll do
yeah.
that then. It sounds like a great plan. Just really quickly though, no, they have not produced the Van Sham subpoena. As far as I'm aware, I've seen nothing that tells me that that's happened.
So yeah,
Um,
it's yeah, we've been here for 2 hours, so I don't know if
I
was
know
there anything else? I mean, we pretty much covered what we had to cover. I know I
no,
don't have that much
I'm
more
good.
time
No, no, I'm good. It's
more time
midnight
to
here anyway,
give.
so
Yeah. I
um,
appreciate everybody in the chat. It was really fun. I actually had my laptop open so I could read the chat at the same time that I was talking, so I was able to like see you guys' comments, and y'all were really active. It's always fun when there's like a really active chat and everybody's involved and
yeah.
asking questions and stuff. It really helps the conversation flow. So thank you, chat.
And I always recognize all the names as well, like it's always really lovely to see this, people coming and watching your videos and kind of being interactive on the chat and everything. It's really nice. And obviously
Yeah.
welcome to anyone who's new.
Yeah, and check us out tomorrow. I'm Citizen Journalist or C Journalist 24 on all platforms. I uploaded a couple funny TikToks. I did some hype edits of Friedman to get the Team Baldoni people hyped back up again because we, it was a little bit demoralizing there for a second. And yeah, so on TikTok I did
Yeah,
upload them. It's the same ones I put on X, but so I got a couple more videos on TikTok now, and then I have my YouTube channel, and then follow me on X if you're not
and
already
I will
following me
I'll
there.
put links. I'll put links to your YouTube channel and stuff anyway in the description. I do for everyone anyway. But that's one thing I kind of want to part on though as well as obviously thank you CJ for coming and everything and doing this. And I always set a time, like I did it with Mandy as well. I was like, oh well, just half an hour. And then 2 hours later, because you just kind of
Yeah.
get so comfortable. It's lovely.
Well,
Um,
we did like
but
an
the one
hour
thing I
on Taylor and then like an hour on Brett. And Brett's story is so
yeah,
like robust that it wasn't gonna get done in 10 minutes. Like,
no, I know exactly. But the one thing I do want to say to everyone though is from a kind of my professional kind of like take on what's happened in this last week, you know, it feels like it's bad news and it looks like it's bad news and some of it is bad news, but there is still very much an active case going on. And obviously if you support Wayfarer and Justin Baldoni, I think just let's keep going and hope that this all works out. And Lively has an awful time in deposition. That made my day, knowing that that's coming.
yeah, the thing is that there's still we still have the chance to amend, and for
Mm,
me, I look at it from like legal, but as like, like taking it seriously. This is a legal matter, but I also have like the Zach Peters in me that likes like the tea and the all. I'm looking for more. Like, what's going to be in the amended complaint, and what do we have to look forward to as far as like getting more tea, more receipts, more
yeah.
info on what was going on. Um, and then so yeah, um, that's why I
Well,
wanted to kind of uplift the community because a lot of people were like, "It's over, we're done." I was like, "We still have the
no, no,
deposition
no.
coming. Not
Yeah,
even
no,
halfway
we're not
there.
over.
There's still 9 months
No, no.
left, and we're in a
Yeah, there's
pretty
a
good
long
spot."
way to go.
So,
They're in a actually great spot. It looks like, oh well, they've had most of their claims. No, they've still got their strongest claims against Lively. Lively has still got her claims in, so they can defend that. I'm really optimistic because they still get to tell between both sides of what's left there. They can still tell the entirety of what their complaint basically had in it. Who gives a shit about Ryan Reynolds, really? Like, I would have liked to seen him kind of have his comeuppance, so to speak. But Wayfarer, where Ryan Friedman was clear, this is not about punishing someone. This is about clearing Wayfarer's name, Justin Baldoni's name, and trying to get them all back on their feet again, career-wise. So, and they can do that with what they've got left, definitely. And I think actually people might not see it like this, but the judge getting rid of the defamation, especially for Lively, means Section 47.1 is it. It's either going to go away entirely if the judge denies any motion that Lively now brings, or it's going to be a lot less of a problem for Baldoni if he does award her damages. So I think that's a win myself. I think that is the silver lining if there is to be one found in that motion to dismiss. I'm not saying I agree with it. I'm not saying that the decisions were, I don't think they were all fair either by any stretch. I really don't. Everything that Omar and Rachel said on their stream last night,
mm-hmm.
there wasn't a single word I could sit there and say, no, I don't agree with you on that. Every word they said, I agreed with all of it. Their take was absolutely spot on. It was problematic. The decision was problematic. It's probably appealable. But if they don't appeal it, I don't think they're going to have that. I don't think this is going to be the big loss that people think it's going to be. It's not. So
Yeah, we'll be here
I'm still
reporting on
standing
it.
with Wayfarer.
We'll be here reporting on it and
Oh yeah,
see what
and
comes up next.
when we do get the second amended, I'm in talks with. I don't know if you want to join me for this, CJ. Actually, because it's going to be the 23rd of June, right? It's going to be the
Mhm.
latest, and they normally Wayfarer tend to file late. I'm thinking I might go live and talk about it in the moment rather than go away for hours and do a thread.
Yeah, let's do that. That sounds good. And maybe we can get some other people on. You know, it's always fun when you have like a little panel.
Yeah. I wonder if we could
Um,
get Lauren on, like, and just kind of all the three of us kind of sit and have some fun with it or something. But kind of because Lauren does an amazing job, and we're very careful not, we part of the reason I don't go live straight as soon as filings drop is because I don't want to, because there's someone else that does that already, and I'm happy not to tread on her toes. We're all really good friends behind the scenes, and we all work together
mhm.
and collaborate with each other. Um,
Yeah, and like
so
everybody
I
kind of has like their, because like I go to you for like the deep dive of like, okay, what does it
yeah.
say? Because you have like the legal breakdowns, and then you know, she's just like the right away. We just want to know the tea, like what does it say, and then later we can interpret it through your thread. So yeah,
Yeah,
that
exactly.
would be
And
fun
and
to.
and that's good. Some people just want to know what does it say. Other people are like, well, can you explain some of this? Or they want some humor. I mean, because some of my threads, I've done mock kind of arguments as a, like as if I was arguing about, from Jed Wallace's side. I did that. Remember Zach did covered that. I've done I've covered only small parts and but with a lot of humor, funny gifs. I always use Cruella de Vil with Stephanie Jones. And we have fun with them. But yeah, I'm thinking I might do a live though. I've been saying to Lara for a while, if Wayfarer ever amends their complaint, I might actually just go straight onto a live and go and kind of break it down in the moment then. But I
Yeah.
mean, that would be probably quite a long few hours worth of a show. So
Yeah,
yeah,
especially
but
considering they don't really do that long of filings, but if it's an
are you
amended
kidding?
filing, it'll probably be pretty long because you know it's like almost like a
Yeah.
redo. Alyssa, thank you for joining us from Sydney. And the live is, unfortunately, I'm like we're doing the Russian goodbye here. I'm like we're gonna go and then we keep talking, but I do have to go. You can
No,
watch
I do have to go to.
the replay, Alyssa. But thanks for joining us live. We had a two
Yeah,
hour show, so you maybe you can put it on in the background or something and listen to it and do the replay. But yeah, I appreciate you, Leanne. I appreciate the chat.
I appreciate you too. Thank you. Thank you everyone for coming. If I didn't get the questions though, if anyone's asked questions, um, you can send me a message on I don't know, Lara, does I'm sure there's a way to keep hold of the chat, isn't there? You can go back to this chat. Yeah, I'm sure Lara said that there's a way to go back through the chat. So I'll try and make notes of the questions and then I will probably answer. If we do tomorrow, I'll answer
Hmm.
them there. Like you said, we would do that anyway
Yeah,
because it
yeah,
is
let's
quite
do that.
late.
Yeah, I saw a
Yeah,
couple
we'll do
too
that.
that I like I wanted to touch on too that were like further up in the thing, and then we got into other conversation, or it wasn't relevant to the Taylor stuff. But yeah, there was a couple that I saw that I noted. So yeah,
Okay,
let's
well,
just.
we'll do. Well, I'll pick up the questions that I haven't answered then. I'm really sorry we can't stay and answer them right now, but if you come on to CJ's, are we
We'll
doing a
try and
live?
do
Should we?
live tomorrow. We'll try and do
We'll try
live.
and do a live
Yeah,
tomorrow.
let's do a live tomorrow, and it'll be my first time. Y'all have to bear with me. We did it with
Oh,
Ellsworth.
it's hilarious.
Y'all can, because that's the only way we'll learn. But I
No,
appreciate
it's fine.
y'all. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for CJ. I'll speak to you soon, right? Thank you, everyone.
Okay, bye.
Bye.